My throat was dry from all the talking. That's actually not too inaccurate. Hello and welcome back. So, yeah, this is probably not going up in a timely manner, but that's sort of what I'm trying at the moment. So, I talked before about how visual novels are sort of like not fitting in my current schedule and life in a way that really makes doing them for the channel work immensely well, let's say that. So I decided that instead of just powering through it, I'm going to experiment a little bit. So my current experiment idea is that I'm going to do short bursts, and I'm going to build up like 3, 4, 5, 6 or so short bursts of playing it over whenever I feel like playing it and have time to play it, that sort of thing. And when I get to like 2, 3 hours, put them all together, one big episode, put that out. Because I want to play them, but I'm not really too... Basically, the idea is I don't think they're popular enough for me to be like, oh, I gotta make sure I get out episodes like really regularly, constantly at this point. That sort of thing where like doing like a half an hour episode in those short bursts and whatnot would be something people would be really interested in on that sort of frequency and whatnot. So my thought process is basically, yeah, let's just like build up a bunch, put out a bunch. It'll come out when it comes out, and I'll just, work it one step at a time and try to do it in a way that I enjoy it to the fullest, because it's not the game's fault. And I'm not even saying I don't enjoy the game. It's just that the process of playing it versus the actual process of playing it can feel like, well, the process of getting into it and going through it, the entirety of it, can feel like a chore, even if when I sit down and start playing it, I enjoy it. It's one of those things where it's like you sort of put off, or you have a long day at work and you're tired, and it's like, and it doesn't work very well in coordination. I think you at least get my point. So I'm going to do this as an experiment for a while, and if it doesn't work, I'll try something else. Again, I'm going to finish the game. Just how is the question. So my throat was dry from all the talking, so I looked inside my bag. Of course I brought up Mountain View. Yeah, this is the important thing to be talking about today. I opened it and took a gulp. What did we do last time? I think we were talking about the actual, current situation of what we know and whatnot. Everyone else grabbed a drink of their own and took a moment to relax.
あともういくつか俺が気になってることを言ってもいいか？頼む。まず一つ目な。被害者は全員能力者だよな。犯人はどうやってターゲットの能力者を見つけてるんだ？
Good question. I would guess that they're probably connected to the they're probably connected to the group that's basically researching all this shit, right? The one that had the whole underground thing at the hospital and whatnot. There's probably some group that's basically keeping tabs and all that fun stuff. Security cameras. Well, one, security cameras. Two, if they're really using all the faces as security cameras as well, then that's a thing as well. Each question was a good one, and one I known was coming.
それについては一応考えてある。犯人は能力者を特定するために多分力士シールを使ってるんじゃないかと思うんだ。
Ooh, have you put together all the things so far?
力士シールを？
正確には11番目のロールシャッハ。AH 東京総合病院の地下にデータがあっただろ。あのシールを見せられた能力者は激しい反応を示すって。
Well, I suppose it doesn't need... are we ever going to address that video that came out with, the blinking? Because it really made it look like it was the sumo sticker that was being used like a security camera.
それは僕や有村も経験済みだ。
思い出しただけでちょっと。
Rimuru closed her eyes and put her hand over her mouth. She almost felt like she was going to throw up.
大丈夫有村さん。はい。
ああ。で、伊藤や小野谷は地下で見たと思うけど、街中のシールが監視されてたよな。カメラで。能力者の素質がある人間を集めて、地下施設で実験するために。
I could see Kirsty's expression cloud. She probably remembered her friend, Minamisawa Senri, who'd been a test subject down there. It hurt to see her like that, but I decided I had no choice but to go on anyways.
だから犯人はあの地下施設の出身者じゃないかと思うんだ。力士シールの秘密を知っていれば能力者の特定は容易だろ。シールを見て過剰反応を起こしてる人間を探し出せばいい。事実僕や有村も力士シールのせいでパニックに陥った時、あの女に狙われたわけだし。
じゃあ犯人は地下施設の監視カメラを利用してるっていうのか？それは無理だろ。あそこへ入るにはカードキーとか必要だし。
それにもう廃墟みたいだったよ。シールの監視とかされてなかったし、実験もやってなかったし。
Especially now.
いや、あの施設にいなくてもシールの監視だけならできる。
え？
Kirsty nodded as if she understood. Oh, is this something she came up with or even had was even privy to knowledge on that?
タクルの言いたいこと分かったわ。カメラで監視してるとかじゃなく、実際にシールの近くで見張っていて、タクルや有村さんのような反応を見せた人を狙うのね。
I suppose, yeah, we did actively see that girl, the little girl, looking girl, walking around exactly like that. And like that, we had a picture of it, right?
そう。パイロキネシストの女もシールの近くに潜んで待ってたんじゃないかな。クモの巣に獲物がかかるのを待つように。そして僕と有村が見事に引っかかった。
そいつはしかし気の長い話だな。
でも不可能じゃない。
You could also have multiple people working on it, as we've talked about having multiple people in this group that we're dealing with.
けどさ。
待って、その点に関しても今議論したって結論は出ないわ。保留ばっかりだね。いいのかな？
Well, if we don't have any way to come to a solid conclusion, we don't need to come to a solid conclusion. We just need to acknowledge that fact and move forward with the understanding that it isn't a solid conclusion. It's just, a maybe.
仕方ないわ。とにかく今は疑問点を出していくのが先だから。伊藤くん、まだ気になることがあるのよね。
ああ、あと2つなんだけど。
Ito asked us two remaining questions. Summed up, this is what they were.
なぜ今回の事件はかつてのニュージェネ事件と同じ日付に起きているのか。そもそもその動機は何なのか。
Yeah, okay, those are two very big ones. Motive is probably the hardest one to answer, because it definitely feels like there's probably something going on in the background that we are not aware of, especially with the whole earthquake thing from before. Why on the same days as New Generation Madness? My thought process is basically they're trying to achieve something, and they're using those as basically camouflage to make it seem like there's a different potential motive for what's going on, and to keep people off the trail of what they're really doing. Whether, even if that trail is as simple as basically... So, okay, I guess if you consider the fact that all the victims so far have been psychics, right? You could say... what they could be doing is that they could be trying to threaten... It could be as simple as... maybe there's like a psychic underground, and they want to basically make these shows of force of people being psychic and getting too popular and getting too close to... Because I suppose I'm thinking of the first one. It's an interesting dichotomy, because the first two kills we saw, the first one he was getting very popular, And you could argue that he was getting too popular. He might, especially considering he was like very publicly a psychic and stuff like that. It could be a show of force to say like, yeah, if you're psychic, keep it fucking under wraps. Guys, we're trying to do shit here. Don't make this a public knowledge, please. And then they do it on the same days of the New Generation Madness to basically obscure the fact that they're sending a message to a select small group of people. But the second one, she just wanted to go underground, and I guess she was getting pretty popular, and maybe they didn't know the difference about what she wanted, which would make that even more tragic if she was just gonna try to do what they wanted anyways, but they killed her.
なんだかまるで騒ぎになること自体が目的みたいにも見えるわね。
そうだな。
Alternatively, another motive would be to create as many psychics as possible, hence all the freaking stickers around. And if you line it up with the New Generation Madness killings, you get more headlines because, ooh, weird stuff happening. What's going on with this? We see trends, that sort of stuff. I guess a lot of my theories for why it's on the same as the New Generation Madness is that they're trying to take advantage of the previous... it's not like they're... I guess there's two general routes I can imagine it taking. One, there's something special about what the New Generation Madness killings did before, and they're trying to replicate it. Or two, they're trying to take advantage of that, like, popularity in some way, whether to camouflage the real intents, or maybe to use the popularity to enhance the visibility of what they're doing now. And I guess... It's not like they were advertising the sumo stickers. They've gotten popular. And I'm thinking about, like, that scene that we haven't gone back to, of, like, the grocery store with a bunch of people with, like, the mask on their head, and it's like, oh, that's so fucking creepy. I mean, when you throw psychic powers out, what they could be trying to do could expand to world domination, right? It could be something like that, if you really get down to it. But... I guess... But... I don't know if it's something as simple as that or unnecessarily attached to the psychic power element of it. So, because I guess that thought comes from the fact that I'm thinking back to that scene with all the people masked. It's like, oh, maybe it's like a mind control of like everyone, and that's what they want to do. So I guess. Another thought I remember I had before, very separated from the other stuff, more connected to the motivation of they want to do something special. Like, if you wanted to make it popular, you wanted to get the sumo stickers to be popular, they weren't exactly advertising it, but they have gotten very big. And they might have even tried to manipulate the situation into basically, oh, the sumo stickers, hence why you had the journalist that made the article about it and got tipped off and all that fun stuff. I guess that would make Lab Coat evil or something, because I still thought that she was the one who tipped him off. She was the one who's purposely trying to make it big, too. So maybe it is something about keeping it on the down low, and then Lab Coat's like doing the opposite of that. She's like sort of sabotaging that effort. But on the alternative, if they want to specifically make it big via the killings, the other option that comes to mind is that this whole system is based around the idea that people basically force their observation, like they create those delusions, observations, and they basically spread it and make it real by it like bursting out from their mind as a disease and chaining across the entirety of whatever region they're able to influence. And couldn't that mean maybe that the more psychics there are, the bigger they can make that chain? Maybe they could do it in a way where if they create this whole psychic phenomenon here, they'd be able to control the entirety of the city through one of their delusions if they were adept enough at it, maybe. Or maybe they could make it go worldwide and etc, etc, etc. There are a lot of directions it can go just evidenced by the fact that I'm here just like, well, maybe this, well, maybe that, well, maybe this. I think it could go in a lot of ways. Was it just to attract attention, or was it a message meant for a specific person?
それが犯行動機なんですかね。
Well, it doesn't even need to be a message for a specific person.
私知ってるよ。愉快犯って言うんだよね。そういうの。
劇場型犯罪とも言うよな。
もしこの先もニュージェネ事件と同じ日付に犯行が行われるなら、次はノータリン事件と同じ日、10月23日ってことになるけど。
Oh shit, that was a week ago in real time. Which also meant nothing was going to happen until then.
なるほど、だからか。
Ito suddenly snapped his fingers as if he'd reached some great conclusion.
お前と有村さ、パイロキネシストに襲われたけど、結局女は宮代たちを殺さなかった。
あ
あ。それって要するに殺す日じゃなかったってことじゃないかな。
殺す日じゃなかった。
No, I don't think that's it. I don't think she's associated. Did that mean it was my power that saved us? No, but really it felt like she was going to kill us. The more I thought about it, the more confused I felt. Because there's just so many possibilities when you throw.
それじゃあ私はそろそろ生徒会の方へ行くけど、くれぐれも私のいないところで危険なことはしちゃダメよ。約束してくれるわね。
Mysteries just become so much more open when you introduce the idea of, how do we wish to phrase it? Literally anything happening.
そんな何回も念を押さなくても分かってるよ。
本当ね。
It'd been a while since Kirsu had glared at me like that. Now that the Empress was back, she was scary.
ああ、そうそう。それからタクル、あなた。
Kirsu got in close and whispered to me.
今夜から青葉寮に帰ってきなさい。
え？
狙われているのかもしれないんでしょ。今の場所に一人でいては危険よ。
She is using this to her advantage. Ooh.
ずっととは言わないわ。しばらくで構わない。事件が解決するまでうちで暮らしなさい。
いや、でもさ。
ダメ。問答無用。もし帰ってこなかったらこっちから連れに行くからね。それじゃ。
あ、ちょっと
Before I could say anything, she ran off to the student council room.
生徒会長のくせに廊下を走っちゃダメだろ。
Are you healed enough that running in the hallways is safe at this point? Back at school or not, you still might be healing at least a little bit.
ん？副部長なんだって？
いや、別にこっちの話だよ。
She wanted me to go back to the dorm? What should I do? There's no real need to listen to her, but knowing Kirsu, she might really come barging into my RV. Are we gonna say, is that a bad thing?
しかしな、いくら考えてもわかんねえことばっかだったな。
そうですね。なんか頭痛くなってきちゃったよ。ねえ、タク。
Arimura seems interesting in that she's going along with this, but the amount of information she's provided outside of like the basic psychic stuff, which was sort of coerced out of lab coat from her in the first place, and lab coat already knew and she was just demonstration, feels very small for someone that seems to be a little bit in the know of the psychics outside of this group. So, she is just a factor in all this that I don't feel like I can completely trust until the game specifically proves I can completely trust her, basically. I like her as a character, though, but still, don't trust her.
タク？
え？ああ、そうだな。
We hadn't really learned anything today. We had no proof, just a bunch of guesses.
なあ、久野里さんに相談してみるってのはどうだ？
久野里さんか。
ほら、彼女なら俺たちの知らないことをいろいろ知ってるんじゃねえのかなって。
ああ、それはやめといた方がいいっすよ。
Arimura shot down the idea.
なんで？
あれ、言ってませんでしたっけ？あの人ってば、私たちのこと人間だと思ってませんから。
Well, she thinks of two of you as humans, so why don't you two go ask?
伊藤先輩だってあの人にひどい態度取られてたじゃないすか。それともそういうの喜んじゃう系とか？だったら私もそうしてあげますけど。
I mean, I'm not saying I get off on that, but I'd be interested to see what you'd be like if you tried to be like that.
だから俺はそういう趣味やねえっての。宮代と同じこと言うな。
Oh, I forgot about that. Arimer had gotten the same idea about Ito that I had. I laughed a little. Lab Goat and Ito. If there's anything in this game I wanted to actually ship, those two, every single day of the week. And then Arimura turned to us with a smile and continued.
別に冗談じゃないんですけどね。私、人の言ってることが本当かどうかわかるんですよ。久野里さん、私たちによくひどいこと言いますけど、本気で私たちが死ねばいいと思ってますから。
Oh, okay. That's fine. I mean, that I'm not surprised about. I thought you were going to say that you could confirm that Ito liked getting treated like that.
Eh?
I'm surprised. She really hate us that much. What did we do? Arimura continued on in the same tone a girl might use to discuss after-school plans with a friend. Again, another thing about her whole lie detecting thing is that once you start to trust her, she's not a machine. Because all she needs to do is tell the truth about what people are lying or not lying, and then very, very specifically sneak in a strategic lie at a very specific point to try to achieve whatever she might be trying to achieve. Again, no proof that she is. Just the whole trust factor still.
あの人の目には私たち害虫駆除のための実験台にしか見えてないみたいです。害虫と同じ扱いでいいんですか、伊藤先輩。
But Ito's not a freaking... After the meeting in the newspaper club ended, I bought a Mountain View at the vending machine in the cafeteria and sat down on a nearby bench. The only thing I'm curious about now is Ito really into that? Why can't Arimura comment on that? I'm curious now. As soon as she said that and I thought, oh wait, you could tell that, couldn't you? By his denial and whatnot. Now I'm super curious. I opened the plastic bottle and swallowed it on a bubbling combination inside.
またそれ飲んでるのかよ。お前ほんと好きだ
Yeah, I don't
な。
like soda myself. Then again, I've avoided basically. I don't like anything that's carbonated. Man, because I haven't drunk. It's not a drink that I have drank most of my life. So it's like whenever the small times when I either accidentally drink something that's carbonated or try it, it's like, oh man, that's just the worst. Why would anyone like that? That sort of thing. I generally drink more stuff like sports drinks or fruit juices or milk and stuff like that, so. Ida brought a can of black coffee and sat down with me on the bench. Really? Are you gonna go after him drinking a Mountain Dew when you're drinking coffee? I don't drink coffee either. Mm-hmm.
けどさっきはびっくりしたな。お前の能力だよ。
僕自身もまだ驚いてるけどな。
とにかく感心したっていうか、普通にかっこよかったぜ。
やめろって。男に言われても一つも嬉しくない。
That's something the heroine says to the male lead in romantic comedy. And then the hero falls in love. Maybe.
いや、それもないな。
A series of faces flitted through my mind. Sarika with a dopey laugh, the ever angry Kurisu, Kazuki playing ESO, and Arimura with her acid tongue. But I couldn't imagine starting a romance with any of them. What was the exact wording he used? I feel like I missed something. Oh, okay, yeah. Romantic comedy led into that. That felt very quick to come to those sets of thoughts.
なんだよ、せっかく褒めてやったのに。よっ。
Ito threw the empty can at the garbage bin.
あ、惜しい。
全然惜しくないだろ。
The garbage can hit a lid and only a small hole to throw the cans in. Of course, there's no way to get inside.
なあなあ、またやってみせてくれないか？
何を？
だから能力だよ。
I wonder if this is going to be a demonstration that it's more powerful with more people around, because more people are observing it. But should it matter? Should it only really matter to have one person around, and the power of more people means that you could extend it further? Yeah?
え？
Was this why he'd thrown the can? My opinion is... Fortunately, his after school in the cafeteria was just about to close, so there weren't many people in the room. My opinion is that if I was in this situation, I'd be so tired, and I'm sort of speaking from experience of working, where it's like, fuck, man. I don't want to do something resembling work. Also, there's only a positive option. Nobody is paying attention to us. I don't think anyone would make see me and make a fuss, but...
お前ってどのくらいのものが動かせるんだ？重さとか大きさとか数とか。
その辺はまだテストしてないな。
じゃあ狙いは正確なのか？ターゲット以外のものが動いちゃったりしないのか？
それもまだ。
That's a good point, though. It would be best to check that sort of stuff. What should I do? Neither. No, now wasn't a good time. I still wasn't used to it and I was already exhausted. The idea of trying to focus even more didn't appeal to me.
今日はダメだ。また今度にしよう。
I leaned back on the bench and swallowed my mountain view.
なんだよ、ケチだな。
Oh, come on. I'm tired. I'm not here for your entertainment.
ケチとかそういう問題じゃないんだって。
But it did seem like I need to test the limits of my power, like Ito had said. Tossed the bottom mountain view into the garbage just like Ito had done a moment ago. Of course, it didn't even come close. Fell on the floor and started to roll. The medical examiner system allows for an examination, some cases, and autopsies determine the cause of death and accident when a person has died of disease of unknown cause. Work of the medical examination as follows. The event of the usual death, the forensic officer first conducts examination followed by a post-mortem from the medical examiner. The cause of death determines the body is then turned over to the family. If the post-mortem examination fails to determine the cause of death, only then does the examiner conduct an autopsy. It is judged that the crime was involved further. More expansive judicial autopsy was conducted. Such an autopsy had been performed in Watabe Tomoaki. I'm trying to be fast. Extremely unusual for a second autopsy like this one to be performed.
どうだ?
Shinjo averted his eyes from the coroner's knife. He'd been to many judicial autopsies, but it was something he never gotten used to. He probably never would, he thought. As for the person standing next to the coroner, she was staring at the open skull without the slightest trace of disgust.
やはり肥大化の傾向が見られるな。
肥大化というと脳が？
この状況で他に何がある？解凍された頭を見て内臓の肥大がわかるとでも言うのか？
Shinjo's shoulder slumped a little. Well, it could be enlargement of... There's something else. There's other stuff in the head, the eyes. When he first met her, he'd been unsure of how to handle her, but now he actually felt kind of worried for her. Didn't that get tiring after a while?
さっき聞いた話じゃ、死因は間違いなく窒息死ということだったが。
窒息だけでこんな風にはならない。
ってことは、これまでの被害者と同じってわけか。脳の肥大の原因については？
何しろ検体が少なすぎる。果たしてこの症状が一連の被害者だけに見られるのか、それともギガロマニアックスに共通するものなのか。
わからないか。
知る方法ならあるにはあるがな。
何？
あの二人、宮代拓と有村ひなえの頭を開いて調べればいい。そうすればこれがギガロマニアックスに共通する症状なのかどうかわかるだろう。
Oh my goodness. If you're just looking for enlargement, couldn't you just do an X-ray?
バカなことを言うなよ。そんなことできるわけがないだろ。
冗談だ。今は CT や MRI があるんだ。わざわざ脳をむき出しにする必要もない。
Right, there's other stuff outside of X-rays. I sort of just lumped that concept in onto itself.
なんだ。私が冗談を言うのがそんなに意外か？
Yes.
いや、
Shinja thought to himself that she probably wasn't joking. She didn't like gigalomaniacs, she hated them. And from the bottom of her heart, he didn't know why she despised them so much. Of course, there's probably a good reason for it, but he wished she would tone it down a bit. They probably didn't become gigalomaniacs by choice. Probably. Are you not confident in that? And more than anything, he didn't want to lose their help with the case.
さて、これからどう捜査していったらいいんだろうな。
If there are still test subjects under the hospital, there are things the police could do. But when he gone down there, there wasn't a trace of anything left.
証拠ならあるだろう。
Labgo's voice was as cold as ever.
証拠？
何のためにあの娘を連れ出したと思ってるんだ。知ってることを全部吐かせろ。
おいおい、相手は子供だぞ。
子供じゃない。危険なギガロマニアックスだ。
Alright, blah 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 blah. She's being unreasonable. Shinjo rubbed his temples, unsure of what to say. If anything, she's a victim. October 15th, 2015, Thursday. Trustworthiness Investigation Corporation, Frisia. Wait, is that what this thing is called? Trustworthiness Investigation Corporation? Momose Katsuku sat in a reception room in a messy corner of her office and sighed as she ran her hand through her hair. Yeah, and she's still sticking around there. You don't have a home to go back to. They already sort of abandoned it. No matter how many questions she asked or how she tried to get her to talk, that was the only answer she would get. Sometimes she tried asking if there's anything she wanted or if she felt like eating anything. But the answer was always the same. She's not eating. Is she gonna starve to death asking to go back? She hadn't made even the tiniest bit of progress since the girl had arrived. Even the endlessly patient Momose would want to sigh after all that. She still don't know where this Yamazoe Yuki girl was from or how she ended up in that hospital. But from what she'd seen, there was a chance she'd endured significant abuse, explaining why she'd want to go back so fervently. And then she was suddenly rescued from it, taken to a completely different environment. She must have been very confused. She knew from experience that victims like that needed to be treated very carefully. She kept repeating the same lines like a broken audio player. Momose was starting to think it was time for a different approach. She didn't know what would happen if she told the girl this, so she kept it secret until now.
ちゃんと話して現実を認識させてあげた方がいいかもしれない。
Yeah, I mean, if her whole thing is I need to go back, I need to go back, I need to go back, and they're already gone, it's like, okay, what are you gonna try to ask for now?
しょうがない。話してみようか。
When she made a decision, she didn't spend any time on second thoughts. There's both an advantage and a disadvantage.
ねゆきちゃん。そこまで帰りたいというのなら教えてあげるわ。聞いて。 あなたがどれだけ帰りたいと望んでももう無理なのよ。
無理。
だってあなたがいたあの場所、病院の地下にあったあの場所はもうなくなってしまったんだから。
Momose was relieved to finally see shock on Yuki's face.
よかった。この子にはちゃんと普通の感情がある。
Like Labcoat had said, they hadn't done any operations on her that would destroy her ability to experience emotions.
この前ね、あなたがここへ来てからすぐに刑事、若いくせにくたびれた刑事いたでしょ。彼が例の病院へ行ってみたんですって。
The girl simply listened to Momose speak, her eyes wide open. Momose kept talking, watching her carefully.
それでね、解剖室から地下へ行ったそうよ。あなたのいた場所へね。でもね、そこには何もなかったって。あなたがいた部屋の中も空っぽだったそうよ。
そんな、じゃあ皆さんは、あそこにいた皆さんは。
いなかったそうよ。誰も。
誰も。
Yuki seemed to be trying her best to understand what Momose had just said. And then...
嘘です。
Yeah, I suppose that was always a possibility, wasn't it?
そんな嘘ついて何になるの。本当のことよ。
だって、それじゃあ、私はどうすれば。
And she's crying. You could help them. Come on.
私は、どうすれば。
Tears started to silently fall from Yuki's eyes. Okay, well... I think that probably makes for a good stopping point. I think like an anime episode's worth plus maybe like an anime episode's worth times 1.5 or so is probably a good amount for a given session. So, yeah, like I said, I'm going to try to do a bunch of these and stitch them together once I have enough for like a big, long, sort of multi-hour sort of thing going on. So, I'll keep at it, and I'll see you then. Drive safely, everyone. And hello, and welcome back. Let's just get right back into it, because how I want to do things now.
はは、どうしたタグル、新規臭い顔しやがって。
顔は生まれつきだよ。
Yeah, he does look a bit like that, doesn't he?
は、なんだ、もう少し面白いこと言ったらどうなんだ。
Dad was as jovial as ever. About his lab goat, no one would ever believe he was a doctor.
どうだ、やっぱ自分の家が一番落ち着くだろ
う。別にそうでも。
ま、一人暮らしを始めたばっかじゃまだそうは思えないか。でもな、いずれわかる時が来るもんだ。我が家が一番ってな。
Yeah. The thing is about home is like, sure, it's where the heart is or whatever, but it depends on where you make home. Like, I've been all over the place, and like, the only place that I've like known is home, like where I grew up and whatnot. That place has been sold. No one that I know is living there anymore. So it's like, you sort of just make home where you are at a point. If you're able to do that, you'll be much happier, basically. Home is you, in a sense. I don't know. Realistically, home is the people. Let's say it that way. So, in the end, I'd come back here to our dorm. Because Kurusu told me to do so at school.
狙われているのかもしれないんでしょ。今の場所に一人でいては危険よ。
I'm so quick at messing up, not closing Discord. Well, that some things will never change.
ずっととは言わないわ。 しばらくで構わない。事件が解決するまでうちで暮らしなさい。
I almost wonder if these flashbacks are actually made for people that like watch these at or like play through the games at like in anime episode length increments. I actually, because I don't mind this nearly as much, even though it just technically happened, because I haven't played. I didn't just immediately play it. I wasn't her slave or anything, but just like she said, it was dangerous to be alone right now. Especially when we didn't know who the killer was or what they were after, or if someone was nearby. It would be easier to get a hold of Shinjo and his allies if I needed to. And I was probably never going to tell this to Kurisu, but the feelings I felt when I left home were starting to disappear. At the very least, you're preoccupied with other stuff. After seeing Kurisu get hurt, or trying to protect me, or cry for my sake despite being such a strong girl, I started to understand some of the things I hadn't known when I left. I realized what I was thinking and shook my head. No way. I wasn't like Yudo, who could never seem to get away from his sister. Oh.
おい、何赤くなってんだよ。
なんでもない。
とにかくさっさと荷物置いてこい。お前の部屋はノノのやつがちゃんと掃除してくれてる。
I forgot he was there. Dad didn't get mad when I left or when I come back. Come to think of it, he only said one thing on the day I left.
そうせざるを得なかったノノの気持ちが分かるようになったら戻ってこい。じゃあな。
荷物置いてくる。
ねえ父さん、タクル兄が帰ってくるって。
How many chores are going to get thrown on my plate right away? As I went towards my room, Yui appeared. I see Yudo behind her.
おう、タクルならもう帰ってきてんぞ。
Perfect. The toilet needs cleaning. Yui's face almost broke into a broad smile when she saw me, but quickly forced herself to assume a strict expression.
何やってんの？
え？
お風呂とキッチンと廊下の掃除。タクル兄が当番の時、私とユウが代わりにやってたんだから。
I
would just say no. At this point, it's like, no. Love ya, but no. I apologize without thinking.
これからしばらく私たちの当番、タクル兄が代わってよね。いい？
Oh my goodness. No, Takeru, you did the worst thing. You admitted fault.
おう。
タクル兄ちゃん、別にいいよ。僕気にしてないから。
ダメ。こういうことはきちんとしなきゃいけないんだから。親しき中にもって言うでしょ？
Is it? Never heard of it. I've never heard of that before.
でもそんなこと言ったらタクル兄ちゃんまたどこか行っちゃうよ。せっかく帰ってきたのに。
ダメなものはダメなの。
なあタクル、ユイのやつノノに似てきたと思うか？
うん。特に怒ってる顔が。
なんか言った？
Yeah, that sounds familiar too.
いえ、なんでもないです。ごめんなさい。
Yui put her hands on her hips, puffed up her chest to glare at me. She did look just like Kurisu when she did that.
もう父さんが甘やかすからタクル兄は勝手なことばっかり。
おっと、今度はこっちに飛び火か。
で、タクル兄、もうどこにも行ったりしないんでしょうね。
I don't know. Depends how many toilets I have to clean.
いや、
タクル兄がいなくなってどれだけノノ姉が悲しんでたか分かってる？ユウだってすっごく寂しがってたんだから。
そっか。
私も私は別に何でもなかったけど。
Oh, come on. Stupid brave face. She'll get the whole point of what she's emulating one day. And suddenly the expression on her face changed.
何でもなかったけど。
おい。
Oh.
ゆい
Stop that. I'm not good with that stuff. I can't handle it. I can't handle it when people cry.
何でもない。
Yui covered her face with her hands, then ran into her room. Ito followed quickly after her, looking very surprised. Dad scratched his head and sighed a little as he saw them go.
ほら、さっさと荷物置いてこい、タクル。
わかった。
I got away as quickly as I could. Oh, that scared me. I didn't expect Yui to start crying all of a sudden. Yeah, a little bit on the... Just turned on a dime, eh? All that pent-up stuff. She's really putting on an act at times, yeah? I thought nothing would really change around here, even if I left. But... do they really need me here all that much? If they did...
いや、でも。
As I sat there, lost in thought, I was suddenly startled by a knock at the door.
誰だ？
タクル兄ちゃん。
ああ、ユウトか。
のの姉ちゃんが着替えたら降りてこいって、
サンキュー。どうした？
さ、ゆいお姉ちゃんのことだけど。
Yuto crossed his hands over his stomach and fidgeted as he looked up to me. Either he's gonna get it and apologize, or he's not gonna get it and be surprised. I don't know.
お姉ちゃん、なんかいろいろ怒ってたけど、本当はずっとタクル兄ちゃんに帰ってきてほしいって言ってて、だから怒ってたのは本気じゃなくって。
大丈夫。わかってるよ。
本当？
だから先に降りててくれ。すぐに着替えていくから。
Well, he's got his priorities straight. It's interesting how the variance of the sincerity to the effort, I suppose, would be the... Yeah. I think you get what I mean, yeah?
ユウト、ちょっと背が伸びたな。
Wait, how would you be able to... Whatever. I guess maybe there's something like relative to you that you're judging. Maybe you got shorter. Yuto and Yui came here at almost the exact same time I had. I suppose it's one of those things where if you live with someone day after day, you don't notice it as much as if you had like a big gap. But at the same time, if you have a big gap, it's harder to have that fresh memory of what it actually was previously, so...
一緒に暮らし始めた頃はどうなるかと思ったけど。
The Shibuya Earthquake hadn't just taken their parents from them, it had caused them severe psychological trauma. During the earthquake, Yuto had been trapped in a dark place for a long time all by himself. As a result, he was still terrified of darkness and being alone. That was why he still clung to his sister. And Yui, after that nightmarish incident she'd gone through after the earthquake, she'd become desperately afraid of men. Oh no. At first, she was even afraid of me. Oh no. Oh no. Is this gonna be relevant? Like, I know it's like, yeah, that shit definitely happens, but that is just a little bit of swerve to the dark. Too dark. to dark elements of storytelling, let's say that. But over time, we started to open up to one another. When I left, they seemed to be doing a lot better. And now Yui had her act together even more. Yuto was still young, but he did seem a little more grown up than he had been before. Well, everyone's growing day after day. So, even if the world didn't look like it had changed, time was still passing. But what about me? Had I changed?
はい、そろそろいいわよ。
それじゃあいただきます。
いただきます。
おほー、すき焼きなんて久しぶりじゃねえか。
何言ってるの、先月もやったじゃない。
なあ、あれは鶏肉だっただろう。牛肉じゃないとすき焼きとは言わねえんだ。
そんな贅沢をする余裕うちにはありません。
You don't have the money to waste on beef? Unfortunate.
誰かさんが困ってる人から治療費なんか取れるかとか言っちゃうから。ま、別にいいんだけど。
そういう言い方はねえだろう。もっと尊敬しろ、尊敬。
はいはい。
ほらタクル、お椀貸しなさい。よそってあげるから。
Kirisa reached out her hand towards me.
いいよ。
ダメ。あなた最近ちゃんと食事してなかったんでしょ。遠慮なんてしないの。
Right, I haven't been eating right. I can confirm with you that is definitely true. But how do you know in what ways I haven't been eating right? If you want to make up for the things I'm lacking, don't you need a little bit more info? I'm just saying. Kirisa grabbed the bowl for me and heaped the beaten egg high with meat and vegetables.
はい、ちゃんと食べるのよ。
ああ、
タクルにこっちにもお肉あるから。はい。
もういいって。
何？のの姉のお肉は食べられても私のは食べられないっていうわけ？
お前酔っ払いのおっさんかよ。
おい、ちょっと待てお前ら。もう肉ないじゃねえか。
こういうのは早い者勝ちだっていつも父さん言ってるじゃん。
言ってるじゃん。
だからもうちょっと尊敬をだな。
They are being respectful, they're heeding your words, yada yada yada. Everyone was seated around a single pot eating dinner. They ran out of meat quickly, though. I thought that the only point of dinner was to eat until you're full, but...
タクル、ユウト、お肉のおかわりまだ冷蔵庫にあるからね。たくさん。
おいこら。
父さんは少し痩せないとダメでしょ。野菜食べなさい、野菜。
俺はお前をそんな娘に育てた覚えはないんだがな。
覚えがなくても育っちゃったんだから諦めて。
Part of me enjoyed sitting around the table and listening to everyone's conversation. No, that wasn't true. I definitely wasn't homesick. Maybe it was just that having someone near me made me feel better. Maybe it was having Kurisu offer to help me when I'd been in trouble on my own. But it definitely wasn't that I was happy to be home or glad to come back to where I belonged.
タクル兄？タクル兄ってば。
え？あ、何？
Interesting that it gave like the delusion sort of thing going on. Like the times previously when... Oh, like when you're in the... That happened when you were in the basement, right? That effect of like... And that like transition into the delusion? Oh, fuck, man. Is us being home and everyone being happy a delusion in some capacity? Is that possible? Is that feasibly possible as a thing?
お茶いるの？いらないの？さっきから聞いてるのに全然答えてくれないんだもん。
I guess you do need another person to make these delusions actually real. The fact that we've seen the whole setting without... the fact that we've seen this whole setting without the whole Takaru being there means that Yeah, no, it's probably real. Yeah, I mean, it's relatively safe to rule that out. Even if you want to say that Takeru and Kurisu are both real, and they were just like, the delusion was being born from that, then yeah.
ああ、ごめん。
そいつのことだ。どうせまた難しいへりくつでもこねくり回してたんだろ
う。へりくつってなんだよ。僕はいつも理路整然と正しい思考を。
はい、
ストップ。そんなこといいからお茶は？
ああ、できればマウンテンビューを。
True.
うちには置いてません。
You don't have soda? I like this house already. I don't like soda myself.
言うとったらどうしたの？ニコニコして。やっぱりみんな揃ってた方が楽しいなって。のの姉ちゃんだってすっごく嬉しそうだよ。そうそうね。そうかもね。
That's popping up again. Okay. Maybe that effect isn't going to be used exclusively for that whole idea. And we're going to move more into having this show up when the delusional stuff is propagating. It didn't work. I got a lot better at seeing my D-sword. Oh, okay, he was trying. But I still don't know how to grab hold of it. I asked Arimura for help, but her answers weren't really helpful. Unlike with my psychokinesis, all I need to do is draw my D-sword from the Derek Sea. I should be able to do it alone. But when I was by myself, it was just an illusion. Unless I rebooted it, I wouldn't be able to use it to attack or defend. If I wanted to use it as a weapon, I need to share that delusion with someone else, just like with my other power. At least that's what Arimura had said. But before that, I needed to be able to grab hold of it.
くそ、もう一回。ここから腕を伸ばして、剣のイメージを固定化。
Whenever I tried to get close to it, I moved away from me like a mirage. If I just flailed my arm at it, I couldn't reach it.
手がする。
タクル、入るわよ。
You're making a lot of grunting noises. Are you masturbating? Oh, wait, let me open the door and check. He was. I had my hand stretched out like a TV hero in the middle of his transformation. Is this the worst thing she could have caught you doing? And Kurisu was staring at me, her eyes wide.
違うんだ。ユートに新しいヒーローの変身ポーズをだな。
Why make an excuse?
ユウトはもう卒業したわよ、そういうの。
Kurisu put her hand on her cheek and sighed.
もし自分が本物のヒーローになれると思ってるなら、やめておきなさい。
そんなこと思ってないよ。僕いくつだと。
いくつになっても子供なんだから、タクルは。
And then she stared into my eyes. I could tell that she wasn't blaming me and that she was genuinely concerned.
タクル、ちょっとそこに座って。
Fuck.
いや、これから風呂に入ろうかな。
いいから座りましょうね。
はい。
I sat down on the bed as I was told.
タクル。
Kurisu took a step towards the bed and looked down over me. Humans are strange creatures. Whenever someone looks down on us, they seem bigger and more powerful. I quickly stood up and looked down over her instead. When I first met her, she was almost at eye level with me, but now...
これは別にやましいことをするための訓練じゃない。
能力のせいで狙われているのに、そうやってむやみに使おうとするのは。
逆だよ。もっとちゃんと使えるようになれば自分の身も守れるし、もしもの時は新聞部や青葉寮のみんなのことだって助けられる。
だから、そういうのは警察の仕事でしょ。
No, actually. The police are a deterrent, but more often than not, they are the reactive force rather than the preventative force. Let's say that. Especially in a case like this where there's a bunch of serial murders, you can't really expect them unless you want to give him a police guard and think that that's going to be accepted. It might be accepted actually with Shinjo being over there. He might be like, oh yeah, maybe we could. I doubt he has the clout at this point to really get that done unless he's personally doing it though.
今回の事件、いざって時に警察に何かできるとは思えない。
けど、
Well, let's say they probably wouldn't be able to do shit even if they got there on time.
クルスこそよく口にするじゃないか。僕らのことを守るとかなんとか。でも能力者が襲ってきたらどうするつもりなんだ？
それは。
ほら見ろ。やっぱり僕が能力を磨くしかないんだよ。
Kirsten stared down at her feet, silently. Then she raised her head and looked at me in the eye.
ねえタクル、私はあなたのことをずっと見てきたわ。だからわかるの。あなたがこの先何を考えるか。
この先？
タクルはね、必ず自分を危険にさらすようなことをする。例えば、自分の力で犯人を捕まえてやろうとか。
I can 100% imagine him going from developing the powers in a reactive sense to trying to use them in a proactive sense. I gulped. I hadn't really thought about it yet, but knowing me, I probably... No, definitely. I definitely think that.
なんだよ。能力者でもないくせに余地か。
いつも言ってるでしょ。能力なんかなくてもね、タクルの行動は簡単に読めちゃうって。とにかくお願い。自分の身を守ることだけ考えて。ね、タクル。お願い。
ああ。
じゃあ、約束の指切りね。
Interesting. Pinky swear? Are we supposed to be little kids? You never know exactly how widespread certain things are, because pinky swear, that's a thing from where I grew up too, right? So, I'm not sure if that's the translation localization, or if that is a thing in Japan. At least in the same context. No way, that's embarrassing.
嘘ついたら針を1000本飲ますどころじゃ済まさないから。
1001 needles? And that's really scary. And then the heavens intervened to save me, and a phone rang out like Gallarhorn? How would you do a GJ? I assume it's from like some anime. I hadn't got a new one yet, of course. There's Kurisus. I suppose I can just go look at that. It's been a while. Okay, it is actually a Norse mythology one. It sort of sounded like something like an anime might make up to sound like Norse. But I hadn't heard of that before, so... No, not that. How did I? Alright, my bad. I hadn't gotten a new one yet, so of course it was Kurisu's.
出なくていいのか？
今はあなたと話をしているところでしょ。
They can leave a voicemail, yeah.
でも事件に関係あることかもしれないし。
She must have thought I might be right because she took out the phone and looked at the screen. Then she looked concerned.
新庄さんだわ。
Ooh. I'd only said it to distract her, but evidently the call really did have something to do with the case. She quickly hit the answer button and put the phone up to her ear. I watched her nervously.
もしもし、クルスです。はい。はい。 ええ。
On the other side of the phone, I could hear a note of concern in Shinjo's voice. I couldn't tell for sure, but he seemed to be saying that someone had gone missing.
いいえ、来てません。だいたいこの家を知らないはずですし。え？タクルが？
What? Oh, don't tell me its lab coat went missing. Like she went off on her own to do something. What did I do? Kirsty moved the phone away from her ear and turned back towards me. Oh, no, the little kid. The little kid, probably.
山添さんって子、知ってるわよね。
Sort of.
ああ、例の病院の地下室から助け出した子だよ。
その子がね、行方不明なんですって。
Interesting. You... How are you not protecting her more effectively? Or she's clearly in a mental state. Like, this seems like something that you'd obviously anticipate, let's say.
Eh?
She was missing.
タクルが連れ出したりしてないかって。
そんなわけないだろ。
そうよね。
ちょっと貸してくれ。新庄さんと
I
話
reached
したい。
my hand towards the phone. Shinjo had given me the location of the office in a multi-purpose building in Sakuragao Kacho. I don't know if that's right. Sakuragao Kacho. There were rows of desks there, stacked high with paper that I normally would have considered a cornucopia of information. But I didn't have time to worry about them now. I rushed up to Shinjo as soon as I saw him.
あの子がいなくなったって誘拐されたんですか？警察がついててどうして？
I think it's much more likely that they took their eyes off her and she just fucking ran.
いや、電話でも言ったけど、そうじゃなくて。
でも彼女がいなくなったのは事実ですよね。
I suppose we don't know what her psychic power would be, right?
ちょっとタクル、やめて、どうしたの？
If it's a power along the lines of some sort of transit power, like teleportation or something like that, then no, she would have used that before to get back. If it's something that she maybe, I don't know, hiding maybe? Maybe she's here, but she's invisible? Or she used it to sneak out or something like that. Again, it feels like she probably would be the one to take the action of her own initiative. I don't know what power would be good for this situation, though.
悪い。
Yamazo Yuki had reminded me a little too much of Minamisawa Senri, so I lost control of myself. Kurisu quickly moved to stop me. By the way, Kurisu had come to keep an eye on me, in her words, to make sure I didn't do anything stupid.
とにかく誘拐とかそういうんじゃないんだ。いきなり姿が見えなくなってしまって。
だからそれが誘拐されたってことじゃん。
それはないわ。だってこの部屋には私と新庄ちゃん、それにミオちゃんの3人が一緒にいたんだもの。
How much do you want to bet Labcoat has an idea? Momose, the CEO of Frisia, had been looking confusing and stern ever since I'd arrived. When I first met her the night we snuck into AH Tokyo General, she'd seemed like a loud, boisterous sort of woman. But now she felt kind of tired.
彼女をソファーに座らせて、俺たちはこっちで話をしてたんだよ。で、ふとソファーを見たら彼女がいなくなっていた。
トイレとかじゃないんですか？
Kirsten pointed at the toilets in the back. But Shinjo put his hand on his forehead, thinking and said,
真っ先に探したよ。でもどこにもいなくてね。それどころか窓やドアすら開けた形跡がない。
考えられることは一つだ。彼女はギガロマニアックスだからな。
I mean that...
能力を使って自分で出て行ったんだろう。
escape? I don't know. I have a feeling she might be in the room, cowering in a corner maybe. What if we get really silent? You think we could hear her maybe just like make a sound?
能力？
I come to think of it, I still hadn't asked. What power did Yamazoe Yuki have?
テレポーテーションとかそういう。
Again, I'm inclined to think that if it's teleportation or something like that, she would have used that in the first place because she was so desperate to leave. Labcoat whispered an answer, her voice full of hate, without even bothering to look back at me.
よくわからない。
わからないって。
ああ、彼女俺たちの質問にほとんど応じる様子がなくてね。能力に関しては久野里さんが探ろうとしたんだが無駄だった。
そもそも瞬間移動だとすればとうの昔にここを抜け出していたはずだ。だがあいつはそうしなかった。
If it was anything that gave her just like a significant advantage to just leave, she probably would have done that ages ago anyways, yeah? That's why I think she might still be in the room. You said that there wasn't any sign she opened the door. Unless someone else teleported her. But why would they bother?
ただウキ君は少し特殊なようだ。今回はそれにやられたらしい。
特殊？
私ね、少し前から考えていたのよ。ウキちゃんを一度どこかの児童養護施設に預けた方がいいかもしれないって。それでさっき新庄ちゃんと美桜ちゃんに提案したら快く OK をもらって。
俺は OK なんか出してませんよ。
私もです。
ちょっと黙っててちょうだい。こんがらがっちゃうから。
That is one way to win an argument. Shut up. We need to be all on the same page here. Momose motioned for them to be quiet. So, are you saying that she disappeared at that point? It could be a fight or flight reflex. I mean, maybe she has teleportation, but she doesn't really know how to use it. And then she was like so absolutely terrified of the idea of being in an orphanage or something like that, that at that point she just blipped into another existence or place or time or whatever.
とにかく OK をもらったの。それで私はウキちゃんを連れて駐車場に降りて車に乗せようとしたわけ。知り合いの施設に相談してみようって。
じゃあ彼女を連れ出したのは百瀬さんじゃないですか。
Oh, why did Shinjo think that maybe we showed up and took her? That's such an interesting thing to inquire about. If you just like turned around and she wasn't there anymore. Oh wait, so why was everyone so upset that she disappeared if Momose had taken her outside? There's no mystery there. Kirsten and I stood there with our mouths hanging open. Shinjo interrupted. Wait, but you two... Shinjo literally just said there was no sign that she had opened the door, which means she disappeared when you were in this room.
という夢を見たんだそうだ。
Wait, what?
は？夢？
違うわ。あれは絶対にあったことよ。だってウキちゃんの手の感触とか車のエンジンをかけた感覚とか全部リアルに残ってるもの。
So are we saying that she transmitted delusion to her that allowed her to escape by basically making her an accomplice? And maybe she has some semblance of skill in that, and she uses that in her delusion-sharing power to help alleviate, say, the patients of the hospital, and that's because that's what she does, and that's the whole thing she's focused on, and has been focused on. Maybe something like that?
けどウキ君を自動車に乗せようとした途端我に返ったんですよね。そしたら百瀬さんは事務所の中にいて俺たちと話をしている最中だった。
Maybe she's able to share the delusion, but she isn't able to actually force it into reality? Like you can, maybe like there's thresholds where you can sort of make someone imagine something, but you aren't able to get to the point of forcing everyone to imagine it to the point that it becomes the reality of the observation, right? And it would have been real if everyone was like Shinjo and Labcoat were also like that, maybe. Huh. Maybe?
ええ。
俺たちは児童養護施設の話なんて提案されてないし、ウキ君と百瀬さんがここから出ていくのも見ていません。なのにウキ君は部屋からいきなり消えた。
どういうことですか？よくわかりません。
So, wait. Okay, so if she disappeared suddenly at that point, maybe it's like a partial? Oh. This complicates things if this is how this is gonna work, where you could sort of like do it partially, but not really partially, and... Oh, that does complicate things at the very least.
多分それが山添由紀の能力なんだろう。彼女を捕獲したら改めて調べてみよう。
Labco's use of the word capture pissed me off. Yeah, treating her like an animal. I could tell that, like Arima said, she didn't even think of us as humans. But she didn't have to talk that way about a little girl, did she? Even if she didn't like psychics, did she have to go that far? Glared at her, but Labco didn't seem bothered in the slightest.
ウキ君の行き先ですけど、宮代君たちが知らないとなると、あとはあそこしか考えられないですね。
私も今、そう思ってたところ。
もしそうだとすれば。
どこなんですか、それ。
Shinjo answered me with a bitter sigh.
君もよく知ってるところだよ。あの子の元の家だ。
The hospital basement.
え？まさか、そんな。
Yeah, if she left by her own means, there's only one place that she'd go, right?
うん。ふきちゃんたらね、あそこへ返してくれの一点張りだったのよ。
At the very least, this will prove to her that they weren't lying about what was down there.
あんな地獄みたいな場所に。
さてな、とにかく厄介なことになる前に取り戻さないとな。
Okay, I think I'm going to call that...
タクル。ねえ、タクル。
I think I'm going to call that a recording session. I'll be back next time, soon enough, so see you then. Drive safely, everyone.
タクル。ねえ、タクル。
Hey, back. It's actually been a little bit since I've recorded last, simply because I got sick for a while and I haven't been able to record for much of anything for a couple weeks, basically. So, let's just try to jump back into it.
見つかったらどうするんだよ。
Now, it passed since we'd first spoken to Momose at Freysia. Kursu and I were hiding behind some plants at near H Tokyo General.
新庄さんたちに任せないとダメよ。私たちみたいな素人が出しゃばったりしたら。
それじゃダメなんだ。山添ウキって子は僕が見つけて青針をへ連れて帰る。
どうして？
彼女、今の久野里さんには渡せない。
Huh. Okay. We're just mad about... Okay, I mean, I can sort of... I get where he's coming from at the very least.
タクル？
Afterward, Shinjo and Momose, a lab coat, had started to come up with a plan to get inside the basement of the hospital. Of course, they weren't going to let us come along. We were told to go home, and at first that was my plan. But then things changed. Labcoat said that she wasn't sending Yamazou Yuki to an orphanage, but to a research center she was affiliated with. She said that they were going to research her power there, but Labcoat had treated not only Arimura and I, but also little Yuki, as nothing more than guinea pigs. And I'd heard her use the word capture many times.
あの子は苦しい実験から解放されて、やっと地下から出られたっていうのに。
Was Labcoat going to send her right back to the same old life she'd experienced before? Just imagining it terrified me, and it made me come to a decision. I would save her.
もしここであの子を見放したら、また同じことの繰り返しだ。またこの場所で誰かを見捨てることになってしまう。
I totally get where he's coming from. I actually completely agree with him here, too.
昔僕は、クルスの親友だった南沢千里を見捨てて逃げた。それを今でも後悔してる。
Oh, we've had this discussion? Or wait, was she not aware? This is a very unfortunate time to have this discussion for the first time, if so.
あの山添って子も実験の犠牲者だ。だから今度こそ僕は助けたい。そんなことくらいで南沢千里が許してくれるとは思わないけど、でも助けたいんだ。
Kirsty's voice choked up. She must have been remembering what happened to her best friend.
タクル、あのね。
え？
本当は、千里は、
lived through it? And now she's running around the street, like, throwing fire at people? Oh, I think... we looked at the... oh... It's been a while, but I think we... I remember trying to compare the hair colors between the picture that we got and that, and it seeming like it probably was different.
彼女のこと何か知ってるのか？おい、クルス。
ごめんなさい。気が動転してしまって。千里はね、渋谷地震で死んだの。あなたのせいじゃないわ。絶対に違う。
Right. That is what they said, isn't it? And it seems like this is meant to be a incorrect thing based on what they're suggesting here. Died in the earthquake, died in the earthquake, died in the earthquake, died in the earthquake. That does mean she lived through everything else. I'm not sure if she's hesitating or if something else is happening, like supernatural, that's making her... Like, could you create a situation where people technically live, but everyone thinks they died? Via the rebooting stuff? Could you do something where you... legitimately, everyone in the room just imagines one person dead, and then they died? Or would they just think that they died through observation, and then maybe they are just like not visible, or they just disappear from people's memories, or their actions after that disappear from people's memories? Or if you make it so that you reboot someone died like years ago or something like that, and they just think that? It sort of depends how elaborate rebooting is. We're still pretty vague on that concept, aren't we? Like, they're clearly making it purposely vague to play around with it for story details, but still, it makes it hard to speculate, basically. So.
クルス。
だから、タクルが責任を感じ続ける必要なんてないの。忘れていいのよ。ね。
Kirsten looked down at her feet. When she did, her hair covered her eyes, and I couldn't tell what she was thinking.
今、クルスは何を言いかけて、何を言いやめたんだろう。
Just as I was about to ask, I heard soft footsteps.
来た。
Mops's van was in the same alley where she'd picked us up before. They'd been watching the hospital for a while now. Saw two shadows, probably belonging to Shinjo and Labcoat, leave the van and run into the grounds.
クルス、向こうが動いた。大丈夫か？
あ、
I tapped her on the shoulder and she looked up. That's why they called her the Empress of Hekiho Academy. There was no trace of sadness that there had been a moment ago.
ごめんね。ちょっと千里を思い出しちゃって。でも、もう平気よ。
Yeah, and you quickly... Well, yeah.
本当はここで待っててもらいたいんだけど。
But I couldn't reboot on my own. I needed a partner no matter what.
何言ってるの。あなたのことを心配しながら待ってるなんて。こっち。
だと思った。
We followed Shinjo and Labcoat from a distance. A moment later, they had pressed themselves up against the wall near the rear emergency entrance. Even from a distance, I could tell it was more heavily secured than before. The lock seemed to be newer and a sturdier model. But Shinjo must have already had the key because he took something out of his pocket and started to put it back.
あそこから入るつもりだな。
Alright then. I quickly created an image in my mind. It looked a key-like object that he was holding, and envisioned it flying away.
やっぱりもっと訓練しとくんだった。
The more I started to panic, the more I lost focus. I couldn't make the delusion clear in my mind.
くそ。落ち着け。大丈夫だ。落ち着け。よし、見えた。
I can see the diesel overloading in front of me.
クルス、ちょっと脳を使わせてもらうな。
どうぞっていうのもなんか変だけど。
Mm-hmm. I imagine the illusion I'd come up with going inside Kurisu, Shinjo, and Labcoat's minds. Kurisu gasped a little. She must have felt something. The delusion was shared between us, and instantly the reboot was complete. Clang. The metallic object in Shinjo's hand rolled away and hit the ground with a clang. Did it do it so unnaturally that they're all like, "Yeah, where are you, motherfucking Takaru?" Then I heard the two of them gasp. The key rolled along the ground in a very unnatural way until it rolled down a metal sewer grate. Just like I'd imagine. Are they thinking we're gonna do it, or are they thinking that, or are they thinking that it's the defenses of the hospital?
よし。
バカ、隠れてタクル。
Just as I was about to make a victory pose, Kirsten grabbed my hand and pulled me back. Then she dragged me down onto the ground.
悪い。
調子に乗らないの。これだから私がついてないとダメなのよ。
Her hand was shaking a little. She was probably still scared of my power no matter how many times she saw it. That was how most people would react. I hesitated a moment, then gripped her hand in return. Then I let it go and looked over at Shinjo and Labcoat. The two of them whispered to each other and silently headed back towards the van.
今だ。
Now you gonna reboot the key back up from the sewer? We kept low as we headed for the emergency entrance. When we reached the door, I turned around towards Kurisu. She got up a moment later, but her breathing was a little heavy.
すまない。ちょっと早かった。
こっちこそごめん。もっと運動が得意なら。
多分。クルス、もう一回。いや、何回かやるよ。悪いけど。
構わないわ。そのために来てるんだから。
Stared at the door. Lock was stronger than before, probably because of the time we'd broken in. Imagine the lock flipping and the door opening. As I'd be clicking the door open like I imagined. Thanks to my power, we were able to make inside with no trouble. Remember the route to the room where we found Yuki, so we had it there. But as we walked through the darkness, I saw the Kurus was acting a little strange.
大丈夫か？
実はちょっと閉所恐怖症がね。でも平気。気にしないで。
Earthquake trauma?
平気ってすごい汗だぞ。
And then I realized something.
まさか傷が痛むのか？
She seemed like she was okay, but it had really been a bad injury. It couldn't have been fully healed up by now.
おい、クルス。
Yeah, that probably makes more sense.
平気だから。ほら、急ぎましょう。
She pushed me onward before I could stop.
もうちょっとだ。あと少しで例の部屋だから我慢してくれ。
ええ。
That's right. It was right around this corner and... Suddenly we heard a voice sobbing in the darkness. Kurus and I almost leapt into each other's arms. It's the voice of a little girl.
タクル、この声。
Was it a ghost? No, that was dumb. Which meant it had to be. Kurus and I nodded and stepped towards the direction of the room. Just like Shinjo had said, the room was completely empty. The beds and the patients that had been confined there were all gone. It's just an empty room. And standing in the middle of that empty room was a crying Yamazoe Yuki. How long had she been there? She's crying like a child who lost their mother.
いない。誰もいない。誰か返事して。
Kurusu couldn't bear to watch. She ran over and gave the girl a big hug. Soon, Kurusu was crying too.
今までよく頑張ったね。でももういいの。だからお家へ帰ろう。
An interesting thing to say. I think she might be projecting a little bit of her feelings about someone else onto her. But Yuki must not have heard her, because she just stood there, crying silently, for a long, long time. The whole time, there's nothing I could do but watch.
大丈夫？変わりましょうか、タクル。
いいよ。もう目の前だから。
Here's my question. How did the little girl get inside there with the locks on? It's not like the locks were already taken off when we came here, when we got there. When we finally went back to our dorm, I took Yuki off my back and put her on the sofa. And then I lay flat on the floor with my arms and legs stretched out because I was tired. She wasn't even that heavy. I was just out of shape.
だから変わるって言ったのに。
運動音痴に任せたら落っことすかもしれないだろ。
More realistically, she was already saying, oh, I'm not athletic in terms of trying to keep up with me, which probably has more to do with her injury, which means that she's clearly trying to offer something that she cannot do.
失礼ね。そこまで言われるほどひどくないわ。それに、タクルよりマシだと思うんですけど。
Goosey's eyes were red-rimmed. Her face was red from when she tried to rub away the tears. She must have been embarrassed by it because she turned away from me and said something mean.
はいはい、わかったよ。その子のこと、父さんに。
あ、うん、そうね。
This is an orphanage, too. Right. This actually does make sense as a place for her to go. After Kurusu left to get him, I lifted my tired body off the floor and onto the sofa. As I'd expected, Yuki hated the idea of leaving the basement. But after Kurusu's fervent attempts at persuasion and my own insistence that nobody was coming back to the basement, she finally clung to Kurusu and started to break down. And as I carried her on my back, she got tired and fallen asleep.
この子の家族は一体どうしたんだろう。本当の家は、学校は。
Is it even her real name? I hadn't had a chance to look the first time we got into the basement, and that data was probably long gone now.
父さん、今上がってくるって。
うん。
Kurusu sat next to Yuki on the sofa and softly stroked her
こ
hair.
の子、捜索願いとか出てないのかしら。
Oh, I imagine the cop knows that by now.
新庄さんの話だと、今のところ該当するデータはないって。
Well, like I said, is that even her real name? They could have, like, if she was taken young enough, relative to the earthquake, they could have given her a different identity. At least one that they could use for her to go by when she was, you know, helping out there after everything went down and that sort of stuff. Because I can't really imagine a motivation to do that prior.
そう。
やっぱり渋谷地震のせいかもしれないな。
After the earthquake, more data on missing persons casualty had gone missing than you could imagine. What now? And to top that off, this year seen the largest solar storm in history affect all kinds of electronic devices. Shibuya hadn't been hit that hard, but a lot of data in other regions had been lost. Okay, interesting. Feels like that would cause a lot of chaos if you're losing historical data on, like, legal stuff.
分かってるのは名前だけか。せめて手がかりでも持っていればいいんだけど。
ななね、タクル兄？何かあったの？
The door opened. Yui and Yudo peeked inside. The two of them rose next to the
まだ
door.
寝てなかったの二人とも。
寝ようと思ってたらのの姉たちの声が聞こえたから。
大丈夫？また喧嘩とかしてない？
That does seem like the first assumption that they might jump to. Kirsten and I looked at each other without thinking.
大丈夫よ。私たち喧嘩なんてしてないから。
本当？だったらいいんだけど。
Suddenly, Yui stopped. She saw the girl sleeping on the sofa and her eyes went wide. Thought that she was just surprised to see a strange girl sleeping on the sofa, but
ウキちゃん？
she said something we never expect. Yes, what?
どうしてウキちゃんがここに？
This isn't gonna be something from like pre-earthquake or some shit like that. That is, because it's been years. I mean, it couldn't be, right? Because they have grown enough that there's no way. Because it's been literally years. At their age, the amount they would have grown, I don't think you'd recognize someone after this many years. So it has to be relatively recently, right? Wasn't there a whole thing about the school that we go to having like a junior high version next door or some shit like that? Maybe it's that.
ゆい、知ってるのこの子のこと。
多分。あ、でも待って、そんなはず。
You walked over to the sofa and sat down next to Kurusu, and then stared at Yamazoe Yuki.
ごめん、私の勘違いかも。
いや、勘違いじゃない。確かにこの子はウキって名前で。
だっておかしいよ。昔のままの姿なんて。そんなの絶対に変。
Oh?
昔のままって？
ウキちゃん、私のクラスメートだったんだよ。小学校2年の時の。
So that's why she looks like she's a second grader. She also doesn't actually look younger than what Yui looks like currently, so... And the next morning...
もう一度整理するぞ。名前は山添ウキ。年齢はユイと一緒だから13もしくは14歳。
Okay. She doesn't look like 8 or 9, though. It would have been, what, like 4 or 5 years ago? That she would have been in... or pre-earthquake stuff. I presume pre-earthquake stuff. Maybe not. Second grade. What grade would she be in? Oh, what grade? So you're in the 12th grade. Well, you're in the 12th grade when you're in when you're 18 and whatnot. So go back, you get second grade at. Oh wow, yeah, that doesn't go back a bit. Yeah, no, that is around the right time. She doesn't look like a second grader. I mean, she looks like fifth grader. She looks 13 or 14. Or maybe a little bit younger, I don't know, 10 to 14, closer to that range. She doesn't look 8, basically. She looks the same age as what Yui looks like currently, is my point. Filling out what looked like a medical chart on his computer.
小学校2年の時にユイと同じクラスだった。だが渋谷地震の少し前から学校に来なくなり、その後どうなったかはユイも知らない。
Alright, so it was before the earthquake. Okay. Impressive that she can remember the faces, especially that they're the same, as her classmates from that long ago, of someone that ended up disappearing. Maybe you'd remember it more because it was notable that they disappeared and stopped coming to school. Still, I'm so bad with faces and names that in itself is just extremely impressive to me.
そう。
で、彼女はその頃、つまり6年前と見た目が全く変わってないとユイは言うんだな。
6 years ago. Okay. Yeah, she does not look 6 years younger than Yui at the moment. I'll just say that.
絶対に変わってないと思う。一応証拠も見つけてきたんだ。
Shows the photo. It was a class photo from her school. I could see a young Yui and a row of children. And in the front row, next to the teacher, I saw Yuki.
これ
どう思うよタクル。
他人の空にっていう感じじゃないの？
Okay. Does Yui actually look older than she does currently? Interesting. Okay.
ウキちゃ
Yeah, that
ん
is-
本人だよね、やっぱり。
Same hairstyle, same glasses, same look, same hair color, same everything. Yeah, it doesn't seem like something you could mistake.
となると成長ホルモンの異常かな。
Maybe. Maybe some real booting shit too.
みんな、ウキちゃんが起きたわよ。
おう、連れてきてくれ。
ちょっと父さん、
ん？
おうじゃないわ。ウキちゃんの前でそんな声出しちゃダメよ。
これで普通の声なんだがな。
いいから優しくする。
はい。
Dad glared at her and started mumbling about how he hadn't raised her to be like this again. And again and again and again.
さ、入って。
After a long pause, the small girl entered the room trembling. Kurisu took her hand and walked her over to the chair, then sat her down.
ウキちゃん、おはよ
She flinched away from Yui's cheerful voice.
う。わからないよね。6年前の私しか知らないもんね。
Very similar. Let's say that. I mean, we're saying this is Yui, right? Over on the right here. Very similar. Yui took a class photo and pointed to herself.
ほら、これ私だよ。立花ゆい、覚えてる？立花ゆいさん。
Yuki looked at the girl in the photo, then at Yui. She gave a little start of surprise.
思い出してくれた？はい。お久しぶりです。もう、同級生なんだから、敬語とかやめてよ。
Yeah, this feels about right for how she's acted, being the person be like, come on, don't be so introverted and shy.
でも、
Dad typed something else into his computer, so you watched them?
決まりだな。
そうだね。
There was no question of it now. It was though Yuki was definitely Yui's old classmate. That'd go a long way to tracking down her family, too.
けどすごいよ。まさか本当にゆきちゃんだったなんて。
We were surprised, but it seemed to be Yui who was most surprised of all. Her missing classmate had suddenly shown up at her home, and her brother and sister had brought her here. And she looked exactly the same as she had 6 years ago.
ウキちゃん、ちょっと話いいかい？
She must have seen Dad's white coat and got nervous because she suddenly sat up straight. Oh, okay. I think it reminds her of the researchers at the laboratory or whatever you want to call that place down there.
何か遺伝的な病気とか言われたことは？成長が止まってしまうとか。
Admittedly, I've had a wild thought during this of him, the father, being like working with this group in the same capacity. Maybe having Takeru and other people here to specifically monitor them and research them over time as they grew up and whatnot. I mean, he seems pretty close to everyone, but it's not so close that I couldn't imagine a heel turn. I wouldn't expect it, you know, just gonna throw that out there, especially considering how compliant she's being with him, right? It could logically fit together, at the very least.
その、よくわかりません。すみません。
じゃあ君の背が伸びなくなったのはいつか覚えているかな？ユイと同じクラスだった頃はどうだい？
すみません。それもわかりません。でも、私、自信があってから、なんか変になって。
そうか。あの地震の後だね。
はい。
はあ、やっぱり PTSD で成長ホルモンが、いや、あるいはターナー症候群みたいな染色体異常って可能性もあるが、こればっかりはしかるべきところでちゃんと検査をしなきゃわからんな。
Dad made some adjustments to her chart as he whispered to himself. The look on his face was far more serious than he usually let us see. Yudo pokes his head through the door. He must have been standing in the hallway the whole time and looking in on us.
ユウト、そろそろ行かないと学校遅刻するわよ。
そうだよ、ユウ。
大丈夫。すぐ行くよ。
He seemed a little scared by his sister's scolding. But he summoned up his courage and came inside and stuck his hand out towards Yuki.
これ、あげる。
In his hands was a tiny chocolate bar. This kind of chocolate you could buy in huge bags for cheap at the supermarket.
はい。ありがとうございます。
こら、ユウ。ウキちゃんは年上なんだよ。そういう言い方はダメでしょ。
年上？
Yudo looked very confused and a little unsatisfied. She looks older to me. I don't know. They all sort of blend together at a point when they're just young, right?
どうしたの、ウキちゃん。
Maybe it's the design elements just looking more elaborate. There is 100% an element to anime designs where when kids are younger in these, they tend to feel like they have simpler designs. So the more elaborate they are in the hair and just the details and aesthetics to them, the older they tend to feel as a result. Just because it feels like there's been more development to them as a person. It's sort of a weird translation. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but it does sort of feel like that contributes to it a little bit at least.
はい。なんだか不思議な気分です。
こういうことって？
And maybe like they make her a little bit taller than her in this. But
こうして家族が集まってみんなでお話ししたりです。
君の家族はどうしたんだ？
Shinjo had said that she wouldn't tell him anything. But maybe in this environment she'd be more willing to talk.
私が小さい時に私を先生たちのところに置いて行ってしまいました。
Little as being around the time that you dropped out of school, little, or earlier than that? My eyes narrowed when I heard her say, the doctors. She was probably talking about the scientists in the underground facility. And then she'd been a victim of their human experiments, just like Minamisawa Senri. Why had her parents done something so horrible to her?
君はそれからずっとあの地下施設に。
Yui looks completely done with it, though. Like, what are you guys even talking about?
はい。
どうして逃げなかったんだ？
お母さんにどこにも行くなと言われたので。
そんなのひどい。
Oh, yeah, how much does Yui know at this point? That's a good question. How much have we told the small children in the room? I could feel the rage boiling over within me.
この子は僕と同じだ。
Her parents had ignored her ever since she was a small child, and eventually, they just disappeared. But still, she wasn't able to get away from them.
君はあそこで実験の被害者。いや、みんなの世話をしていたけど、それはなぜ？
地震のせいです。
There was a sadness in her eyes as she remembered the people that had vanished.
地震で先生たちは病院からいなくなってしまいました。皆さんのお世話をしていた看護の人たちもです。
But they're still monitoring to some extent the fact that they saw her get taken and then just the world and the fact that they just were able to flip that thing upside down to get rid of the evidence so quickly means they were definitely at least monitoring it.
だから代わりに私がお世話をするようにと病院から言われて。
What? That is such a... Were you going out and finding people to bring them? What's up with that? Because that seems like the most interesting element of it. Because it's not even that you were there taking care of people that were there. It seemed like you're bringing in new people, right? Or were you taking people out for walks? Is that more the idea? Like their little adventures outside to get some fresh air and stuff like that? How you were talking to the people when we were first sneaking in almost made it sound like you were leading a group of very willing people, which could mean that they were people from within first and then you left and you came back. Or it could mean that something happened to them to make them very willing before you brought them in the first place. We had assumed at the time more so along the lines that you were bringing in more people for experiments and etc, etc, etc. But,
学校はどうしたんだい？君が今着ているのは碧峰学園の制服だろ？年齢から考えて中等部に在籍してると思うんだが。
碧峰学園。
Why are you wearing the uniform if you don't even know what it is?
私たちが通ってる学校よ。ウキちゃんはうちの生徒なのよね。
But Yuki shook her head.
うん、これお友達が着てたものです。
Okay?
友達？
はじめ地下で皆さんのお世話をしていたのは私だけじゃなくて、もう時々この服を着ていて、私可愛いねってずっと言ってたんです。
Someone your age. Did we have any mention of a Hekiho that went down to like second grade level? I don't think we have.
ああ。もしかしてその子、君と違って外から通ってきてた？
So presumably they would have come along later, right?
はい。
なるほど。碧峰の生徒だったのはそっちの子か。
彼女、最初は私と一緒にお仕事をしてたんですけど、だんだん具合が悪そうになって、お休みも多くなってきて、そしたらある日、これをプレゼントしてくれたんです。
Interesting. Good excuse to have her have them, I guess, but I wonder who. It was someone who was coming in and out, at the very least, not someone who was living there.
自分にはもう必要ないから、代わりに大切に着てねって。
Oh. Yuki looked down at her shoes.
だから、このお洋服は私の大事な宝物です。いつも綺麗にして着ています。
When I saw her expression, I understood. Her friend probably knew she was dying. She'd been a victim of the same horrible experiments as Minamisawa and Yuki. She got sick as a result.
それじゃあ、君が老人を連れて外を。
タクル、
Kurisu interrupted me gently.
一度にいろいろ聞くのはやめましょう。
あ、
Fair?
ウキちゃん、辛いこともいっぱいあると思うし、また夜にでもね。
そうだよな。
それに、朝ごはんだってまだだものね。お腹空いたでしょ？
いえ、私はそんな。
Yeah, I feel like she hadn't even eaten when she was with the cops, so everything about that made me feel like she would have just denied him, like, I want to go back, just constantly. She gasped a little embarrassment and turned red. That does make me wonder, like, how she escaped. Did she just real boot in a way, in like a general way? Or did she have a specific ability that she was using to cause that delusion within the, I don't even remember her name, the woman who's the head of Frisia? That sort of thing.
父さんもそれでいいかしら。
ああ。なあ、ウキちゃん。このお姉ちゃんはちょっと辛いが、飯だけはうまい。上で食べてくるといい。
父さん？
So, here's a thought. I don't know much about learning Japanese and whatnot. I do have the general impression, I could be extremely wrong about this, that learning Japanese often is it's a fairly long process growing up, maybe more on the written side, just because of the nature of the language and how it's written, more so that than the spoken side. But I wonder, does she have that fully? Would by second grade be a point where you could, because she's obviously not been in education systems since then, would second grade be a point where you could pull someone learning Japanese in, like, growing up in Japan, obviously, out of that and then bring them back 6 years later, and they'd be at a relatively competent level of being able to read everything they come across? I do not know if that's the case. I'm willing to bet in English that probably wouldn't even be the case. I don't really remember when people learn things in English, because it all seems fairly normal to me. Baseline, I suppose, is a better way to phrase it. I do remember in second grade, because I was a bit ahead of the curve, we had like this thing called honors or challenge or something like that, where the people who were doing better academically were pushed ahead a little bit in special classes and whatnot. I remember the only thing I remember about what I was learning in second grade was that I had started to learn long division. That is the only thing that I really remember, and I remember it being notable because, again, we were ahead of where other people would normally learn that stuff. Oh, that's gonna ruin your breakfast appetite, yeah?
ありがとうございます。
Also, Yudo, aren't you supposed to be going to school? As she left, Yudo quickly gave her another piece of chocolate. Okay, that's probably a good place to end for this time. I'm going to try to do these more frequently. I've been intending to, especially as the holidays come up and I get a bit more time to just get into a bit more of a rhythm, to try to just record more frequently on everything, basically. So we'll see how successful I am in that. So I'll see you next time in what will still probably be this episode, because I'm trying to make these just super long episodes. So I'll see you then. Drive safely, everyone. And hello and welcome back. Let's get right back into it. At lunchtime, Ito and I were heading to the club room.
じゃあ、あの山添雨季って子、今は青葉寮にいるのか?
Yep. I have no idea what we're going to do long term, because I imagine Mr. Policeman's very confused. And I imagine lab coats over there like, oh my goodness, someone did something like telekinesis or something. She could probably put it together, or she could at least be paranoid enough to assume it is a possibility. And she'd be right, weirdly enough, in this case.
ああ、この先どうなるかわからないけど、なんとかしてやりたいとは思ってるんだ。
けどまさかゆいちゃんの同級生とはな。
驚いた。
でもまあ良かったんじゃねえの？
良かったって？
ゆいちゃん喜んでたんだろ？
ああ、そういうことか。確かに。
Yui had really looked happy this morning. Normally, she probably tried her hardest to play the role of being Yuta's big sister. But she's still only in middle school. If she ran into a friend, of course it would make her happy.
何がおかしいんだよ。
いや、お前口ではなんだかんだ言いながら結構大事にしてるからな、今の家族のこと。
そんなんじゃないって。
照れるなって。お前にとってもいいことなんじゃねえの？そういう存在がいるってことは。
僕は別に照れてなんか。っていうか、そんなことどうでもいいんだよ。ほら、早く部室行こう。尾上や有村や和樹にも山添のことを話さなきゃ。
Of course, I'd already told everyone to come for an emergency meeting. They should be in the room already.
というわけで、今山添雨季って子は青葉寮で保護されてる。
たくん、大活躍だったんだね。
いや、それほどでも。
The girls all seemed very impressed. Zarko was squeezing her Garifari strap in lieu of applause. Still sounded like nothing was. Still sounded like nothing like it was supposed to, and honestly, I would prefer the applause, but I was used to it now, I guess.
ダメよセリカ、カズキ。 あんまりおだてるといい気になってまた無茶なことするから。
She's not wrong.
しないって。
Sheesh. I appreciate that she was worried about me, but Kurisu was a little too protective. I especially wish she'd stop it when everyone else was around. It was embarrassing.
けど気持ちいいっすね。今頃新庄さんや久野里さん悔しがってますよ。ざまあみろです。ぷぷぷ。
Yeah, I was about to say, like, Shinjo, I don't mind. Or I wouldn't really want to... I wouldn't feel good about making mad. Lab coat... be an interesting reaction at the very least. I don't know if I'd feel good or bad about it. It would be entertaining, I think.
有村は前から知ってたのか、山添のこと。
ええ、まあ電話でちょっと話したくらいですけどね。彼女フリージアでは肝心なことはほとんど喋らなかったみたいですよ。多分久野里さんたちを怖がってたんでしょうね。
まあそうだろうな。
それに比べてあの子、宮代先輩の前では割と素直だったみたいですね。先輩ってとぼけた顔して実は女の子の扱いがうまかったりするんですか？
No, I think I am dumb. Arimura grinned. Of course I do. I've read every issue of Cool Cat Press that I could find. Yes, that'll be very persuasive. Make sure you say it out loud. I couldn't say that though, so I didn't.
違うよ。クルスとユイがいてくれたから。
当たり前じゃないですか。何本気にしてるんです？気持ち悪いですよ。
Damn it. I was never going to get used to this. For one thing, no matter how hard I tried to glare at her, she just smirked. I was trying to think if I could come back when the door to the club room suddenly opened. The door opened softly, but it was clear that the person standing in front of it was furious.
Oi.
You wouldn't happen to have been listening outside, and yeah, technically you have an association with this school. Did we ever establish if you were a student or something else? You're just wearing the uniform for some reason. Honestly, her and Zoe feel a little contrived as reasons to wear the uniform. I feel like they just wanted everyone in the uniform. Speak of the devil, Lapcoat was there, and the light in her eyes was as cold and fierce as ever. Instead of yelling, her voice was low and threatening. I figured that she'd eventually find out that we were the ones who'd taken Yuki, but I didn't expect her here so soon.
お前、どういうつもりだ？
どうって。
あいつは重要な証拠なんだ。勝手なことをするな。
Lapcoat stomped over to me and grabbed me by the lapel. Her arms were so thin, I didn't know where she got the strength. It's like she was filled with some kind of raw hatred that gave her power.
ちょっとやめてください。暴力反対です。
Serika and Kirisu grabbed her and tried to pull her off, but she held on to me tightly.
僕は無理にあの子を連れて帰ったわけじゃないです。
何？
彼女はうちに来るのを望んだんです。あなたたちのところには行かないって言ったんですよ。
That was only a half-truth, but I felt like I had to say it anyways.
大体証拠って何なんですか？彼女は物じゃないです。実験動物でもないです。だからあなたには渡せません。
何も知らないくせに、貴様。
Her hand gripped me tighter. What the hell was going on? What was wrong with this woman? I felt a powerful rage building up within me. There was a little buzzing in my ears, and Kurisu and Serika's shouts suddenly seemed to be very far away. Then I saw the sword. It was clear. I was about to say, I sort of feel like calling it just a sword, then I thought, what if I just called it the D? And then I thought, then I saw the D, and I think that might not go very well. It was clearer than it had ever been before. Her face suddenly twisted in pain. I looked at her with blurry eyes and saw that a red mark had formed on her pale, white wrist, as if something was digging into it. She was gritting her teeth, and her breathing made it seem like she's trying to endure some kind of incredible pain, but she still refused to let go. Arimaru's scream seemed like it was coming from underwater. The new violent temptations within me had almost taken control. What she's trying to do is wrong. I'll get rid of her myself. That righteous anger combined with this power, I can do anything I want. A maddeningly sweet feeling of omnipotence overflowed from within me and refused to stop. That's right. Do it. Just kill the bitch, it screamed.
やめなさい、タクル!
I heard Kurisu yell in my ear, and at the same time, I felt a strong slap across the cheek. And then Labcoat and I were pulled apart. I suddenly regained control of my senses. Kurisu, Ito, and Serika had grabbed me and were holding me back, while Arimaru and Kazuki were doing the same to Labcoat. Labcoat looked at me with eyes full of hate, and then pushed Arimaru and Kazuki away. Serika quickly grabbed them and held them up.
大丈夫？うん。ありがとう、セリ。
もうやめてください、久野里さん。
Now, it was the Empress's turn to get mad. What were we doing there? Things around her wrist. He wasn't imagining anything super specific, it was just get rid of her. Was like her blood getting cut off in some capacity? Or something like that? Maybe that's why it was going pale? I mean, that would probably kill her eventually. Yeah.
お帰りください。ここは部外者がいていい場所ではありません。
She was clutching her hands in the fist so tightly that they turned white. Standing between Labcoat and the rest of us, as if she was some kind of protector.
あなたが何のつもりで、うちのタクルやウキ、それから有村さんにひどい仕打ちをするのかは知りません。でも、私はそれを許しません。
お前の許可などいるか？今実際に見ただろ。能力者は危険な。
今すぐお引き取りください。
Kurisu's voice left no room for discussion. Neither of them moved a muscle for a moment.
ちょっと待ってくれ。ストップだ。ストップ。
And then we heard panting coming from the hallway as the single voice of reason returns.
どこへ行ったのかと思えば、やっぱりここか、久野里さん。
You know, if you want to just go get her, couldn't you have just gone to the dorm? Where else do you think we would have? Where else do you think we would have left her? I'm just saying. It was Shinjo. He must have been running for a while because his hair was messed up, you know, more than usual, and there was sweat on his forehead.
俺に任せてくれと言わなかったか？
あんたの悠長なやり方では大切な証拠が消されてしまう。
焦るのはわかるが、物には言い方というものがだな。申し訳ない、クルスさん。俺たちは何も揉めたくて来たわけじゃないんだ。
じゃあ何のご用ですか？
そう怖い顔をしないでくれるかな。
Shinjo looked at both of them, troubled. and then turned towards me.
なあ宮代君、君の言いたいことはわかる。昨日浮君を連れ去ったことも別に責めたりしない。確かに俺たちが間違っていたかもしれん。だから今日はちゃんと頼みに来た。浮君と、あとできれば君と有村さんもしかるべき場所で一度検査を受けてほしいんだ。
はあ、
Arima responded before I could.
新庄さんこそ頭の中見てもらったらどうですか？はーい、私喜んで実験台になりますなんて言うとでも思います？
Okay, FYI, Miss Lie Detector. You know we can, monitor their sincerity via asking them questions about their intents here.
話は最後まで聞いてくれ。これは本当に君たちのためなんだよ。
His next words came as a shock to me. Well, if we're gonna go out on a limb, I'm gonna say, thinking about the other person that Yuki was referring to that gave her the clothes, it could be referring to that sort of situation where simply these things may develop into a place that may put our lives at risk simply being a psychic, that sort of thing.
実は今しがた佐久間先生に相談をしてきたんだ。
父さんに？
Oh. Both Kurusu and I shouted at the same time.
君たちはその久野里さんのやり方が気に入らないんだよな。だったら佐久間先生の友人の病院ならどうだ？
おい、何を勝手に決めて。
Shut up.
久野里さん。
Shinjo put up a hand to cut her off.
わかるだろ。そうしなきゃ彼らは検査になんて応じないよ。ちゃんと君も同席させるから。
Lapcoat furrowed her brow in anger and then turned around and left the room. Shinjo waited until he couldn't hear footsteps anymore and sighed a little in relief, and then he continued.
ということでどうだろうな、宮代君、有村さん。何でも佐久間先生、以前は大学の医学部で准教授をしていたらしいじゃないか。
I didn't know that. Kurusu must have not known it either. She looked over at me confused.
父さんが准教授？
知らなかったな。
ただの変なおじさんだと思ってた。
おいおい、まああのルックスじゃそう思われるかもしれないけど。
Shinjo laughed, seemingly in sympathy with my dad.
佐久間先生の友人なら信頼できると思うんだけどな。どうだろう。
私はどっちにしても嫌ですよ。
そう言うと思った。
Shinjo chuckled. He was probably anticipating that response.
でもな、有村さん、佐久間先生の話だと君らの能力は身体に対して良くない影響を与えているかもしれないそうだよ。
Yeah, if you consider the fact that Yuki's having that, not growing thing, there definitely could be an element to that. Yes, could be causing like hormonal imbalance and whatnot. If you could control reality to match your observations, at what point does real booting, just sort of doing it maybe almost subconsciously, could you do that in a way that would keep you looking the same? Because your mental image of yourself would be that mental image. You wouldn't change because you're constantly sort of just reverting yourself to your mental image. You could spend years and you just maybe grow a little bit, go back, 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 grow a little bit, go back. That sort of thing. I wonder if that's a feasible situation. Maybe that's the explanation behind Yuki and her, supposedly still looking younger.
え？
山添浮君に会ってくるといい。あれで14歳というのは明らかにおかしいと思うんだ。なあ、宮代君。
It's true that Yuki looked the same as she did in her old school pictures. It's like the passage of time had stopped for her. But that was caused by her powers.
浮木君に関しては絶対に精密検査をすべきというのが佐久間先生の意見だ。そのついでに宮代君と有村さんも異常がないか見てもらったらどうだろう。まあ人間ドックだと思えばいい。それでもダメかな。
Arimura was still unsure, it seemed, but what happened to Yuki must have bothered her.
少し考えさせてください。
ああ、それで構わない。
We really should be asking about what sort of data you want to get out of it. What are you looking for? Because you're obviously trying to leverage this for your evidence gathering mission 2, right? So, why don't we ask questions in detail to probe the sincerity of it, to try to make sure we understand what you're going for? And if we're like, okay, sure, that doesn't really matter too much to me, and getting a checkup isn't that bad of an idea in the first place, given his argument, but I also want to check the sincerity to make sure we're not doing anything. We are contributing to something we don't want to contribute to, basically.
まだ OK したわけじゃないですよ。
もちろん。
ん
I looked out the door where Labcoat had just left.
父さんが必要だと言うなら検査を受けてもいいです。けどその途中でもし久野里さんがその山添や有村を実験動物みたいに扱ったりしたら。
Ooh, could we have her bound and gagged during the time? Could we have could we have Ito go and be her handler for the time frame? She can come along, but she has to be bound and gagged and led around by Ito the entire time. I think he'd enjoy that. This is, you know what, maybe this is more a gift to Ito than anything. I hesitated for a second, unsure of what to say, but then I continued.
僕だって怒ります。能力を使ってその検査なんかできないようめちゃくちゃにしてやりますから覚えておいてください。
おいおい。
ダメよ、何言ってるの。
Everyone was shocked to see me act so differently than usual. But I remembered the sense of power, of omnipotence, that I just felt, and I shivered a little. That's right, I could do it. And I would do it. If I had to, I could do what I just did.
了解だ。検査中は俺が注意をしておく。それでいいだろ。
Shinjo sighed a little and shook his head. He was probably trying to come up with a way to keep Labcoat quiet and not having much luck.
それじゃあ部活中のところお邪魔したね。
He went to leave the room, but just before he stepped in the hallway, he turned around.
あっといけない。もう一つ大事な話があったんだ。久野里さんのせいで忘れるところだった。
何でしょうか。
It was clear from Kursa's voice that she was still upset. Shinjo may have been used to dealing with a lab coat, but the Empress was a whole different animal altogether. He flinched a little.
宮代くんと尾上さん、あと伊藤くんにちょっとね。
私ですか？
俺何も悪いことしてないっすよ。
してないです。
君たち病院の地下へ不法侵入したじゃないか。
あれはですね。
というかそれを言ったら新庄さんや久野里さんだって。
その通りだ。だから今のは冗談として。
冗談になってね。
本気でびっくりしちゃったよ。
聞きたいことっていうのは実はその地下施設のことでね。
Shinjo's voice dropped several decibels as he continued.
久野里さんの話だと施設の PC に南沢千里という女の子のデータがあったというんだが。
Oh. I heard Kursu gasp a little. Shinjo didn't know that Kursu and Minamisawa didn't know about them, though, so he just looked confused for a moment before quickly continuing.
久野里さんは君たちも一緒に見たと証言してる。覚えはあるかな？
Suddenly hearing that name almost brought back the trauma, but...
はい、見ました。
データは確かにあったんだね。
はい。
そうか。
So multiple. Do you not trust her, basically? Okay. I can totally get you taking that approach. Shinjo looked at Ito and Terika too, especially since she seems the sort to potentially maybe jump to conclusions. So, while maybe she's trying to be honest and sincere, she may sincerely believe something that is just straight up false. So, getting multiple perspectives and multiple accounts is important. They both nodded.
なら、これを確認してほしい。証拠品でね、実物を持ってくるわけにはいかなかったんだが。
He put his hand in his pocket and took out a photo. Huh. This doesn't have a current date. It showed what looked like an ID card.
Huh?
I couldn't believe my eyes. The card looked old and was dirty and scratched in spots. But the name and face on it were clearly visible.
Minamisawa Senri.
That's right. The name I don't know why I'm struggling with that one today. The name Minamisawa Senri was displayed under the ID number. The expressionless face in the picture was, without a doubt, the girl I'd seen in the basement.
どうだろう。同姓同名の別人ってことはないかな。久野里さんはこの子に間違いないと言ってるんだが。
間違いないです。
俺もそう思います。
私も。
All three of us answered instantly. Shinjo nodded and put the picture back in his pocket.
そうか。ありがとう。
その子、南沢千里さんがどうかしたんですか？
I asked, trying to say it in a way that wouldn't bother Kurisu.
ゆうべ、そうだな。ちょうど君が浮君を青葉寮に連れて行ってしまった頃か。新鮮駅付近を警ら中だった巡査2名が連続放火事件の容疑者らしき女を発見した。
え？っていうと、私たちを襲ったパイロキネシストですか？
Is it actually? Am I remembering what I was comparing and contrasting previously? Incorrectly, maybe.
あ、君らの証言や有村さんに協力してもらった似顔絵と特徴が一致していたそうだ。何よりも火を使ったらしいからね。
Those words probably meant.
逃げられたんですね。
職務質問をしようと近寄った途端にやられた。一人は重度の熱傷で、今病院の ICU にいる。もう一人の巡査は女を取り押さえようともみ合いになった。結局彼も手足を焼かれ重傷なんだが、その時女が落としたのが
The ID card? He patted the photo in his pocket.
は？
That woman had Minamisawa Senri's ID card? Why?
それって宮代を襲った犯人がってことですか？
Huh? Wait, what? Suddenly there's a loud crash. Kurisu... I turned and saw that Kurisu had gone deathly pale and been forced to grab a table to stop from falling over. Her teacup was lying shattered on the table. Sound was probably from when she dropped it.
クルス？
先輩大丈夫？
ええ、ごめんなさい。ちょっとめまいがしたものだから。
座ってろ、副部長。
うん。ありがとう。
Katsuki dragged a chair over for her to sit in, and she collapsed down on top of it. Shinjo seemed to realize that something was wrong. He hesitated a moment, then asked in a soft as tone as he could muster.
クルスさん、もしかして君も南沢千里のことを何か知っているのか？
新庄さん、
平気よ、タクル。
Kurisu looked up and cut me off. And then she told him how Minamisawa Senri was a childhood friend and that she was being used as a test subject in the experiments conducted in that basement. And finally...
でも、千里は渋谷地震の被災者として 慰霊碑にも名前が刻まれています。犯人であるはずがありません。
And that's how she finished.
そうですよ。あの地震の犠牲になったんだろうって久野里さんも言ってましたし。
I quickly added. Shinjo thought for a moment and then spoke, even more gently than before.
クルスさん、よく話してくれたね。ありがとう。彼女の死の記録が事実かどうかは今警察で再調査を進めている。その状況次第では申し訳ない。改めて署の方で話を聞かせてもらうかもしれない。
構いません。何かの間違いだと信じてますけど。
There's no doubt in her voice. Shinjo chuckled a little.
君の友達を疑いたくはないが、因果な商売でね。犯人の正体はともかく、宮代君と有村さん、君らはまた狙われる可能性がある。用心だけはしていてくれ。
They did stop for an explicit reason. I don't think it was because Takeru defended. I think he just stopped her last attack and then she changed tone. For some reason. Basically, I think she had thought that we were someone else. And then realized we weren't who she was after. So she stopped and stopped bothering and stopped caring. Didn't tell us because she doesn't freaking care about if we know or not. Interesting that Arimura's eyes perked up there.
やっぱりそうですかね。
君たちは能力者だとバレてしまったんだ。何かあったらすぐに連絡を。24時間いつでも構わない。あと、南沢千里の件に関しては警察から正式に発表があるまで外部に漏らさないでくれ。真偽がはっきりするまでマスコミあたりに騒がれたくない。頼んだよ。
I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead on a few things. Shinto took one last worried look at Kurisu and then left the room. Everyone fell silent, lost in their own thoughts. In the end, we canceled the club meeting and Kurisu went to the student council to finish up her work. She was still pale. We all got ready to go, but for some reason, no one actually left. Serika and Arimura were paging through the magazines. What about what's-his-face, the other student council member? I guess he shouldn't know at this moment, but maybe he should know eventually. Kazuki was still silently playing ESO 2. Eden and I were thinking about the case and glancing occasionally at the map on the wall. There's a new sticky memo on the map. It's Senri's ID card. Yep. Might be Senri. While I was trying to decide if we should add it, Kirsten had written down and copied it herself. Her normally beautiful handwriting was a little unsteady. She'd probably been shaking as she wrote it.
南沢千里か。
うん。
確かに似てたな。ID カードにあった子供の頃の写真と有村の証言の似顔絵。
Arimura looked up from her magazine. She was staring at me. So, I mean, I guess they identified her, they identified her via the photo. And she looks notably different than she used to, at the very least, to the point that our description of her for the composite sketch and whatnot meant that we didn't recognize her, maybe? Oh, I'm trying to remember. I have a vague memory of comparing eye colors and being like, no, that's different. Was that Serika that I was comparing? Or, because I'm trying to think, like, if I was comparing everyone with pink hair, there's been 2 characters with pink hair, right? So, I'm trying to remember, was that just that? Or, it's been a while, obviously, so. She was staring at me. She didn't say it aloud, but it was obvious that she was trying to tell me that she thought so too. Oh, that's saturated. Did we get a view of her without? I thought we got a view. Yeah, we would have gotten the portraits. And that's saturated because it's the CG with fire and whatnot, and everything's being lit up by that. But there were portraits that we would have had the proper eye color to look back on. She's a lot older, but if the girl on the ID card grew up, she might look like that, yeah.
それじゃ僕らを襲ったのは。いや、でもそんな。
なんかもう少し情報らしきものがあればな。
もしかすると、あの子なら何か知ってるかもしれない。
Yuki? You think she knows something about that?
あの子
I mean, we haven't had any real efforts to, one, ask her about any of that. Two, I don't think there's anything to connect the underground facility and the pyrokinetic at this point. We don't even have it to connect to the murders. I don't think we even technically have the underground facility connected to the murders at this point, so there could be 3 independent groups that we're dealing with here.
ああ、
I hesitated for a moment, then realized that we weren't getting anywhere as things stood, so I held up my hand towards Ito.
悪いが、スマホ貸してくれ。
お前、まだ新しいの手に入れてないのかよ。
Yeah, I know.
もうじき買うよ。サンキュー。
I took the phone from Ito and dialed the number. After a few rings, I heard a voice I knew well. It was a rough voice I'd heard almost every day lately.
はい、青葉いいんです。
もしもし、父さん。僕だけど。
おお、タクルか。どうした？
あのさ、山添さんなんだけど、今どうしてるかなと思って。
ああ、今診察室のベッドで点滴をしてる。軽い栄養失調が見られてな。お前が言うようにかなり劣悪な環境に。
今って電話に出られるかな？
眠ってはいないから大丈夫だとは思うが。ちょっと待ってろ。
Let's see if it's been. Oh no, it would have been like late 2000s. She knows what a phone is. It's like it would be interesting if this was shifted a bit to a point where realistically cell phone, like you could jump 6 years of being isolated and whatnot and go from like cell phones being a relatively uncommon thing, or like maybe you've heard of it or something like that, to them being just absolutely everywhere. Then again, it's just a phone. I don't even know why I'm thinking that a phone. You know what? That speaks of the time too. That I'm thinking of a phone and I'm thinking, does she even know what a cell phone is? And I'm not even considering the fact that phones existed way before cell phones. Obviously, they did. A second later, I heard a loud, high-pitched girl's voice.
ちょっとタクル兄、ウキちゃんは治療中なんだから邪魔しちゃダメだよ。
Shut up. Not the time.
お前の大声の方が治療の邪魔じゃないのか。
Yui had probably been so worried about Yamazui that she'd race home after school. It's great to see her being such a good friend, but right now is a huge nuisance.
ああ、いいから山添さんに代わってくれ。大事なようなんだ。
後じゃいけないの？
これ、絶対に内緒な。できればクルスには聞かせたくない話なんだ。お前も黙ってろよ。
There were signs on the line for a moment as she thought, but eventually she reluctantly agreed.
わかった。待ってて。
Since it was just me, she probably didn't feel the need to hit the hold button. I could hear the doors opening and closing as she went to the exam room. There was someone whispering, and then I heard another girl's voice.
もしもし。
ああ、急にごめんな。具合良くないのか？
大丈夫です。私は平気だと言ったんですが、佐久間先生とゆいさんが心配してくださって。
そっか。
I was relieved to hear that she wasn't in bad shape. What I was about to ask might be bad for her mentally, though.
な、もしかして南沢千里って子知ってたりしないか？
はい。
Right, no, yeah, I guess, yeah, we do have a connection between her and the basement, as in, like, well into the past. Not necessarily. No, the earthquake was, like, 5 years ago. So, no, Senri wouldn't have been in middle school at that point, I think. Unless she was like a year older than Kurusu or something like that, and still was her friend. Maybe? Just trying to think of the person who might have been showing up and giving her the uniform. So she wouldn't have been in the middle school by that point. Or maybe she would have been? I guess, wait, is there an elementary school level for this academy? What else was I saying? I was saying something else. No, yeah, we know she's connected to the basement. We know that was a long time ago, too. And that she hasn't been seen since the earthquake, which was years ago. So that's what I'm saying. We don't have a connection between her and the current situation in the basement. But if she was around since then yeah, she might just be aware of her from years ago, even if she isn't relevant for more recent stuff.
南沢千里。記録によると、渋谷自身まで君と同じ施設に通っていたはずなんだ。年齢は、6年間だから、12歳くらいかな。
南沢千里さん。
Oh, I mean, maybe. I guess it depends when middle school starts, right? If we're saying that they're 18 now, then 12th grade back to 6th grade. 6th grade would be early middle school at the very least. Maybe.
そうだ。どんなことでもいい。彼女について何か覚えていることはないか？
南沢さん。南沢さん。
She seemed to be trying her best to remember. Okay, so not anything recently, at least. I saw that the rest of the newspaper club, not just Ito, but Serika, Arimura, and Katsuki as well, were staring at me, trying to hear the conversation. Yamazoe thought a little more before she spoke.
直接会ったりお話ししたことはないです。でも何度か治療室に入っていく姿を見かけたことがあります。あの子は私よりも辛い治療をしてるって。だから私も頑張るようにって先生に言われました。
Yeah, for all the things I wanted to hear, it's that her treatment was painful. I remember the experiments I'd seen as a little kid, and the tiny girl crying for help, and I shivered. But Yuki had it far worse than I did. She'd actually been exposed to the same torture that Minamisao Senri was.
ごめんな。嫌なこと思い出させて。いいえ、
私はそれが嫌なことだとは思って。
そっか。他に何か覚えていることはないか？
あと、そうですね。南沢さんは随分と足が悪かったみたいです。
足？
はい。私が見かけた時はいつも片足を引きずっていて、先生に支えられるようにして治療室へ入っていきました。
片足を引きずって。
Oh, yeah, is that something that we associated with the Pyro Girl?
なので、私はてっきり施設で足の治療をしているんだと思っていたのです。
Dragging her leg. Wasn't that the same thing the pyrokinetic was doing?
Miyashiro-san?
Blue eyes, blue eyes, blue eyes, blue eyes. Isn't that it? No, yeah, that's a different eye color, isn't it? Hasn't everything we've seen of Minamisawa here had her with like pink or red or dark, like a dark reddish sort of eye?
いや、ごめん。また何かあったら聞くよ。ありがとう。
Maybe I'm not seeing enough photos.
はい。それでは、ゆいさんに電話を
そのまま切っちゃってくれ。うるさいから。じゃあまた後で。
ちょっと、なんか聞こえたよ。うるさいって何？
I hung up the phone before she could finish and handed it back to Ito. I looked at the map again. I saw 2 notes that Kiryu had written in trembling hand. Pyrokinetic found that woman had Senri's ID card. Pyrokinetic killer might be Senri.
あの女は本当に南沢千里なのか？
でも彼女はもうこの世にはいないんだろ？副部長が言うように慰霊碑にも名前があるし。
But is she considered dead because she went missing, or?
なあ。でも、地下で見たデータでは、行方不明になってた。
Right, fair.
だからそれは。
そう、新庄さんにも言ったけど、僕はそれが彼女の死を意味すると思い込んでいた。クルスもそう言ってたし。
Well, you could assume that the info hadn't been updated when the actual death had happened. It had just been updated as missing. Could have been something simple as that. It could also be a situation where the missing translated into a death out of an assumption at a point. That's not uncommon.
けどもしそれがデータ通り本当に行方がわからないだけだとしたら。
I mean, missing in that sort of situation often translates to probably dead. And I'm sure there are plenty others that did die that they were never able to find or identify remains for at the very least.
どういうこと？
Serica's looking between me and the mapping fusion.
尾上も覚えがあるだろ。AH 東京総合病院は渋谷地震の時災害拠点病院の一つになっていた。被災者のデータはいくらでも共有できたはずだ。
そうなるとちょっと変ですね。慰霊碑に名前があるってことはどこかの病院あるいは警察で彼女の死亡が正式に確認されたってことですもんね。
Probably.
だろ。あんな実験までやっていた連中が大事な被験者の死亡情報を見逃すはずがない。
確かに行方不明なんて書かないよな普通。
Ida crosses arms in thought.
ってことは死亡したっていう情報が間違いもしくは嘘か。
I think assumption is more reasonable. And I think that's a pretty reasonable thing to assume that they do, too. There's probably a lot of people they never found that they declared dead. Just because of the nature of the situation. Yeah?
新庄さんは多分それを疑ってる。南沢千里という子はまだ生きていて、そして僕たちを狙ってるってことだ。
She's after someone. The red sun was about to sink below the buildings on the horizon. After us, I'm not gonna bet on. I feel as though she mistook us for something else and then realized it wasn't, then went off. I still have nothing to contradict that outside of them being afraid that she might be after them. I feel as though if she was actually after them, she would have just finished the job previously. But, I guess there's no reason to rule out the possibility that she's after them, at least in terms of their safety's sake. I looked out the window and saw that the sunlight had illuminated the clouds and formed a brilliant twilight. But soon it would disappear, and the cold night would come.
でもさ、仮に犯人が南沢千里だとしてなんでお前を襲うよ。
それはわからない。なぜか能力者を恨んでいて、たまたま僕が引っかかったのか。
I suppose the real question I should be asking within my realm of thought is, why would she mistake us for someone else? Maybe she's just looking for any psychics that she could find? That sort of situation?
だったらわざわざニュージェネの狂気事件をなぞる必要なくね。
Well, I don't think she's doing that. I don't think we have any. Didn't we already, did we ever, look at dates and... Right, I think I remember talking about this, but we never really came to a conclusion of whether it was before or after, right?
宮代の推論通り、犯行に何かメッセージがあるとすれば別だけどな。
We're getting to the point that my speculations are starting to become memories of how I remember what we've talked about in game. So I'm not sure, wait, did I speculate that or did we actually say that? Some kind of message. Back then, when Minamisawa Senri had begged me for help, I left her there. I was just a kid. What could I do? No matter how much I told myself that, she probably wouldn't agree. She thought I was a ray of hope, and I left her there and ran. It wouldn't surprise me if the memories that turned to had turned to hatred and rage that she would never forget. And after she was set free during the Shibuya Earthquake, she attacked me.
Huh?
Suddenly I remember a time when she'd attacked me. The smile on her face had chilled me to the bone. And this is what she said.
見つけた。
噂。復讐？
I don't buy it. Was this whole thing Minasawa Senri's way of getting revenge on me?
そんなわけあるか。
I realized what I was thinking and slapped my hands against my cheeks to drive the thought out of my mind. Again, I feel like that doesn't add up. Okay, well, I will call that...
本当にいいの？
Yeah, really, I am going to call that a recording session here. I think I can probably get one more in before the end of the month in terms of just, you know, realistically when I tend to be in the mood and mental state that getting into this is the most fun. So I think my general approach for visual novels going forward is that I'm just going to play when I feel like throughout a month, and I'm going to post everything that I do in one big episode at the beginning and or end of a month. So that's my plan going forward at the moment. So I will see you all next time. Drive safely, everyone. And hello and welcome back. One last time before the end of the month. Okay, I'm not actually sure how long I'm going to go this time because I actually have a bit of a headache, so let's jump back into it.
おう、任せろや。
やったよ、ウキちゃん。今日から一緒に暮らせるって。
Oh, yeah, I mean, it is an orphanage. How many rooms do we have? This is like set up like a proper house, right? How many rooms do we have? Have we had other orphans come here? Or has it just been from the earthquake? After we got back, Cruz and I met with some good news.
はい、よろしくお願いします。
もう、だから敬語はいらないってば。
Honestly, Yui being, like, associated with her past is probably the most convenient thing about this. Because it means that she's a lot more willing to go along with us because there's something familiar. Shinjo had come here in the afternoon, and that's what he'd worked out. There were several reasons. First, Afrisha couldn't keep her anymore, but due to her power, it would be difficult to give her to a normal orphanage. Second, Shinjo was taking a different route other than the officers on this case. So he said he couldn't give her to a police facility. And the most important thing of all was that this was what Yuki wanted. Having her old friend Yui seemed to be helping her a lot.
よかったわね、ウキちゃん。
She blushed a little and nodded.
父さんもありがとう。
なーに、むしろこっちがありがたいってもんだ。誰かさんと違ってとっても気が利くし、家事の手際もいい。もう少し元気になったら委員の手伝いもしてくれるって言うし、大助かりだ。
父さん、それは私に対する当てつけと考えていいの？
Yui pouted, but Dad just laughed and ran his hands through her hair.
部屋はどこにしようかしら。今空いてるところってないわよね。
And helping out around a clinic does feel like that checks a few of her boxes in terms of what she'd want.
私と一緒でいいでしょ？ね。
そういうわけにはいかないわ。ユウとはどうするの？
別にいいじゃない。平気よね、ユウ。
Oh, okay. Don't force him to admit the fact that he really would prefer that.
ほら、ユウと困ってるでしょ。ダメよ。
だったら僕の部屋は？
I get where you're coming from, and it really shouldn't be a problem. But this is also anime. So...
嘘！タクルにってばやらしい。
いくらなんでもそりゃまずいだろう。
違うよ、そういう意味じゃなくて。
Once this case was settled, I intended to leave. So I could sleep in the dining room or something, and she could just have my room. But Kurusu seemed to know exactly what I was thinking, and she poked me in the stomach.
なんだよ。
What, you not even gonna let me correct myself to not make me seem like a giant pervert? on, at least let me say it.
ダメですからね、また勝手に出て行ったら。
ここにいるのは事件が終わるまでって約束したろ。
そうだけど、あなたがだらしないからよ。一人暮らしなんて気が気じゃないって何度も言ってるでしょ。
Dad suddenly slapped his hands together.
ああ、そうだ。一つ部屋が空いてるじゃないか。
え？
ほら、今は使ってないが、以前ナースの宿直室だった。
あそこって物置じゃない今。
でもな、日当たりもいいし、物置にしとくのはもったいないと思ってたんだ。
そう思ってたのなら、もっと早く片付けて欲しかったわ。
Kirsa sighed and turned to me.
明日部屋の片付けをしましょう。手伝ってね。はーい。
Ignore that. I'll probably have to block that out, won't I? Oh. Yudo answered cheerfully.
でも今夜はどうしようか。ゆいとウキちゃんが一緒で、ゆうとは父さんとでいい？
よし、決まり。布団用意しなきゃ。ゆう、手伝ってくれる？
私、自分でやりますから。
大丈夫。ウキちゃんは何がどこにあるのかまだ分かってないでしょ。あと敬語はいいってば。
はい。
だからそこははいじゃなくてうんうん。ね、言ってみて。
でも、私も手伝うので。
そう？それじゃあ一緒に。
ああ、ちょっと待ってくれ。
I stopped Yuki before Yui could take her out of the room.
どうしたの、タクルに？
山添、新庄さんから話は聞いたけど、もう一回だけ確認させてくれないかな。
はい。
僕のスマホ、今どこにあるか本当に知らないんだよな。
Oh, I forgot about that. I was like, is he going to follow up with the thing from last time? No, we're talking about the smartphone again, okay.
スマホ？
ほら、こういうのだよ。
Yui took out her phone and showed it to Yugi. When she saw it, she finally seemed to remember. Right! Right, that was a thing, wasn't it? Like, I had that whole thing last time where it's like, oh, well, maybe she doesn't know what a phone is, but I was thinking of cell phones. Man, Cat Girl loves playing virtual reality, doesn't it? Luckily, that's a nickname for my friend. So maybe I don't need to cover that. When she saw it, she finally seemed to remember.
新庄さんが見せてくれた電話機のことですね。あれは、落ちていた場所に戻したんです。
その後、誰が拾ったのかわからないか？
はい、すみません。
そっか。
So it was just as Shinjo had said, after all. Then who had my phone in the picture inside it? And how had they been able to call Ito's phone? Well, they haven't tried again since, so...
タクルに、もういい？話は終わり？
Wonder what they were trying via it. In fact, we haven't seen much in terms of trying to mess with us since. Via their, little text blurbs or IM blurbs that we saw probably in between chapters, right? Maybe it's just been a while since the chapter started, and it's a long-ass chapter.
ああ。
それじゃあ寝る準備しに行こう。父さん、とりあえず病院の使ってもいいよね？
おう。この前干してからまだ使ってないやつがあったろ。あれ使え。あとシーツも。
分かってるって。ああ、そうだ。ねえ、ウキちゃん、お風呂も一緒に入らない？
はい。
だからはいじゃないでしょ。 けどユウは別だからね。
What? Does he normally?
わかってるよ。
Does he normally?
ユイのやつ随分とはしゃいでるな。
そうね。でもわかるわ。やっぱりお友達っていいものよ。
Yui took Yuki and Yudo out of the room.
クルスは大丈夫か？
どうして？
ほら、食費とかいろんな世話とか一人分増えるだろ。
世話は平気よ。ウキちゃんはいろいろ手伝ってくれるって言うし、むしろ楽になるくらい。食費とかはまあ父さんが頑張ってくれれば。
おお、任せとけ。ちょっとトイレに。
Dad quickly ran out of the room to escape Cruz's gaze.
まあ。
She chuckled, but there was a kindness in her laugh. Speak of the devil. As me sure completely awakened, shall I do it? More. Yes, more suffering, more regrets, the pain of the abandoned. And for that, more. The pain of the abandoned. Okay. Speak of the freaking devil. Sakama Wataru. Is that a name I should recognize? Sunday. Arimura, Yuki, and I get a full medical check at a hospital run by a friend of my dad's, just like Shinjo had suggested. Oh, is that the father's? Right, Dr. Sakama. That's the father's name, right? And now the numbers, brainwaves, electrocardiographs, MRIs, and the other images were lined up on Dad's computer screen. Of course, as a complete amateur, I had no idea what any of it meant. Also as a complete amateur. What was the... No. It was like... the delete button? Nope, auto button. The page something? Nope. Backspace. Yes, backspace. Okay, let's take a look at this. PID, I assume that's patient ID. Not sure what those mean. I assume this is 2015. Is that a date? I assume this is for each of them. Considering PID. I assume that would be patient ID. That's the first thing that comes to mind, and they are different between them. So, yeah. So if we look at these, they do seem developed in different ways. Yeah, I can't really make sense of this. TR... I mean, these seem different. Let's see, I guess the real question is, would there be... I guess this little opening here seems... I don't know if that would be normal. But that does seem to be a trend between them. There's that, and I guess there's a little bit here, but it's not there in that one. Oh well. Lapcat was talking to my dad as if she was a colleague, rather than addressing him as the much older man that he was.
おかしなものって何ですか？ただでさえこんな検査されてムカついてるのに。しかも今日って友達と約束あったんですよ。女子同士って一度断ると後々面倒なんですけど。
Arimura put her hands on her hips and complained. Yuki, for her part, looked scared. She's hiding behind me and trying to stay out of Labcoat's sight.
素人は黙ってろ。邪魔だ。
Oh my goodness, so much VR for Leo Kakyo. You're getting in the... Oh wait, no, I don't say that part.
はあ？冗談じゃないですよ。ここでちゃんと言っとかないと、この先どんな実験をされるか分かったもんじゃありませんからね。
そういうことを言うど素人が一番腹が立つ。
なあ有村さん、久野里さん、そうやって一日中喧嘩してて疲れないか？
She just sighed like he always did. She just sighed like he always did. Arimura's eyes narrowed as she glared at Labcoat, who just laughed.
で、佐久間先生、結果はどうでした？
分かったことがあればなるべく早くお願いします。できればこの後買い物に行きたいんで。
ああ、そうするよ。まずウキちゃんの成長阻害因子に関してだが、これはすぐには分からん。染色体からホルモンの分泌異常まで詳しい結果が出るには時間がかかる。で、タクルと有村さんに関しては体はどこにも異常なし、どの臓器もすこぶる健康だ。ただしタクルは食事のバランスが明らかに悪い。特定の栄養素が欠乏してる。これはののによーく言っとくからな。
God damn you. This is what this was really about in the end. Like, you eat what, vegetables? I'm not gonna eat vegetables. Vegetables for the fucking weak. My goodness.
有村さんは少し甘いものや油を控えた方がいい。ジャンクフードもやめること。このままだと確実にメタボへ一直線だ。
げ
I don't think you could tell that much, or that specific of details. Like the lacking vitamins and stuff being just on the low side, I could get. I guess fatty foods and stuff you can tell from. You could probably guess that is the source of it. I think more so than anything, probably.
体のことは別にいい。脳はどうなんだ？
It's sort of part of the body.
ああ、これが MRI だが。
Dad clicked on one of the images which displayed images of human brain. Arimura must have found the sight of her own brain creepy because she looked away. Yuki didn't seem to know what it was and stared out from behind me, confused. Laptop clicked through the images slowly, checking each little part in turn, but then finally tossed it away.
3人ともネガティブだな。
ああ、ネガティブだよ。
ネガティブ？嘘、頭悪いってことですか？
Well, no, that doesn't mean you're stupid, but... Arimura staggered back as if she'd been given some kind of shocking news. No, I think she's just fucking around.
確かに頭が悪いな。バカすぎる。
Yeah, much. I think you're both pretty stupid, honestly. One of you in a more charming way than the other, though, admittedly.
そんな。
いやいや、そういう意味じゃないから。
Dad chuckled a little.
久野里君、君は聞いていた以上に人が悪いね。
ネガティブの意味もわからないようなやつはバカと断じていいはずだが。
こいつは新庄君の気苦労もわかるね。
So I would say that if someone defines another person's intelligence by their ability to remember or just be aware of what a specific word means, and I assume we're speaking of negative, I'm not sure, maybe they said negative in English, which sort of, throws away the idea that it's a simple word that you should definitely know, that you should specifically know what some medical term is. I feel as though that is stupid in its own right. Personally, I've always been pretty whenever people try to define intelligence by basically trivia knowledge levels.
でしょ?
Shinjo gave Dad a tired smile.
安心していい、有村さん。医学の世界ではネガティブは陰性って意味だ。つまりおかしな症状は出ていないということだよ。
That makes sense. Probably what I would have guessed in the first place if I actually thought about it. Something along those lines. I probably would have guessed that because it is a fairly vague interpretation. Though how they were talking about it made me think they were talking about something a bit more specific for this scenario.
君の脳は至って正常ってことさ。
Debatable, but still.
なんだ、びっくりした。
Arimura sighed with relief, for once acting like a girl her age. Lately, I finally understood that this is who she really was. She once told me before that she was always trying to be the person that the people around her wanted to be.
ギガロマニアックスと脳の肥大化の間には結局因果関係はないのか。
少なくともタクルたちに異常は見られない。君の言うそのギガロなんとかとの関連性は自分で判断してくれ。
Okay, then here's my guess. I would say that it probably relates in some way. So they saw enlargements in all the people that died, right? It probably relates to why they died. Or maybe it enlarges the more the powers use, either over time or in one burst. One burst might make the most sense, considering the nature of how they died. Labcoat frowned and thought.
でも一連の殺人事件の犠牲者には特徴があった。被害者の脳に同一の症状が見受けられた。
So, go back to square one. Start thinking from different directions, different perspectives. Come on, aren't you supposed to be smart, Labcoat? Labcoat showed Dad her tablet computer. It had several brains on it that weren't ours. Norimura looked away again.
これを見ればわかるだろう。どれも大脳新皮質が肥大化している。
言われれば確かに。
Dad whispered as he looked at the tablet.
肥大化？大きくなってるってこと？
まあな。
およそ 1.2 倍といったところか。そこで今回お前たちの脳に同様の症状があるのか見せてもらったわけだが、結果はネガティブだった。お前たちの脳は通常の人間と変わらない。
つまり被害者にだけ脳を肥大化させる特別な何かが起こった。
さあそれはどうだろうな。この程度なら日常生活に支障のあるレベルじゃない。知性や知能にも影響はないだろう。本人も気づいてなかったんじゃないか？
True, 1.2 times is different enough that you could easily imagine it being within a realm of error. Are people's brains that uniform that 1.2 times is like a significant abnormality? Like it's a bit bigger, but couldn't that just be like, okay, it was a bit bigger? Correlation ain't causation, basically.
つまりもともとそういう脳をしていたのか、死の間際に異常をきたしたのか、あるいは脳に異常をきたしたせいで死んだのか、断定はできないということですか。
Dad looked at the tablet and nodded.
そういうことだね。
いずれにせよ考察のためのデータが乏しすぎる。せめてあと 2,3 に被害者が出てくれればいいんだが。
Why don't you try to... You don't need to make a decision, but you do need to make a decision on how to move forward with your investigation. Is this going to be a sticking point? You do sort of have to make a decision, at least in terms of giving yourself direction, right? Coming to conclusions, jumping to conclusions, making assumptions, stuff like that. It's not fantastic as a thing in general, but it is generally necessary at times when you just don't have the data to make a decision on what to do next, which sort of sounds like what you're talking about.
だからそういうことを口にするのはやめろ。
Shinja treated it like a joke, but her face was completely serious and terrifying.
っていうか、つまり今日の私たちの検査はあんまり意味がなかったってことですか？冗談じゃないんですけど。
Oh, there was a point. They ruled out a possibility. Well, they having a theory. I don't even know the best way to phrase it. You know what I'm talking about. They ruled out a possibility, basically, and are left with a bunch of questions. You know, the usual.
いや、そんなことはないさ。有村さんがすこぶる健康で脳にも異常なしって分かっただけでも収穫じゃないか。
Shinja tries best to make her feel better, but
私に向かって心にもないこと言っても無駄ですよ。これだから有村は厄介だって思いましたね、今。
そんなことあるわけ。
Shinjo gave up and lowered his head.
すまん。
ああ、せっかくの休みが潰れちゃった。私そろそろ行きますね。
Arimura grabbed her bag and tried to leave.
ちょっと待て。
But she turned around at the door when Lapcoat stopped her.
何ですか？
最後にもう一つ手伝え。お前の能力が必要だ。
嫌です。
だから久野里さん、物には頼み方というものが。
But Lapcoat ignored him.
山添雨季の能力について
You don't
ちゃんと聞いておきたい。
trust her? She doesn't give a sincere answer, it's out of ignorance, I think, at this point, not a lack of sincerity. Yuki shivered and hid behind me. Dad saw her and frowned in a way only I can notice. Then he said, I'm gonna hit the restroom and walk past Arimura and out the door. On the way out, he whispered to me.
俺は向こうへ行ってるわ。超能力なんて話は医者の領分じゃねえ。聞いてるだけでこっちの頭が変になりそうだ。
After Dad left, the lab coat looked at a tiny little Yuki with cold eyes.
山添、お前自身にもよく分かっていないようだが、とりあえず知っていることだけでいい。話してみろ。
Her harsh tone only scared Yuki more, but I looked at her and nodded, and she tried her best to work up her courage.
私は誰かが心に描いたものを形にしてしまうみたいなんです。
What? Isn't that just real booting? What, you do it for someone else's imagination? Is that the big?
誰かが心に描いたもの？
それは誰の思考でもか？
私の近くにいる人です。
形というのはつまり実体化させるということだな。例えばここにあるコインを私が思い描いたら。
Lapcoat took out a penny and showed it to Yuki.
そういうものの場合もありますし、そうじゃないものもあります。
そうじゃないものっていうと？
何と言えばいいのかわからないですが、例えば状態を
状態？
綺麗になりたいとか、こうなってほしいとか。
それが現実になるっていうのか？
現実なんでしょうか。私にもよくわかりません。
Well, if we're gonna go by how the head of Frisia seemed to react to it, it seemed like that's probably the situation that she found herself in and how she escaped. If we're gonna go by how that happened, no, it's not real, but it fucking feels real, that sort of thing.
それは今やろうと思ってできるものなのか？
いえ、意識してできるわけではないです。
どうだ、有村。
Lapcat looked over, but Arimura just turned her head.
はいはい、その子嘘はついてませんよ。全部本当みたいです。
無意識のうちに他人の思考や願望をリアルブートしてしまうということだな。
なるほど。それならこの前フリージアから姿を消した方法も説明がつく。百瀬さんの思考がリアルブートされてしまったわけか。
So her power could only reboot other people's thoughts and wishes, not her own? Probably not. Probably more a matter of her real booting being... So she's probably... just her mental state probably places her in a state where... Because real booting is where you put it in other people's minds, right? But more that she takes someone else and brings it to her and then spreads it, that sort of thing. And that's just probably more how she mentally handles it. And honestly, this is probably a part of a lot of how all of theirs works, right? It's just some aspect of how they see the world, how it manifests differently, and that sort of thing. Where telekinesis is probably just manipulating the world This is probably more just like, I want to help that person sort of thing. So you're focusing and you're trying to think of what they're feeling, that sort of thing. And then you probably subconsciously pull it in because you can make that connection. It's like her own life. She had no hopes of her own and only lived her life for the sake of others. In a way, it was a very sad power.
好むと好まざるとに関わらず能力を発動してしまうという点では、そこにいる有村ひなえと同じ部類だ。能力自体は大したものだが、不便なものだ。
不便で悪かったですね。
で、それはいつからだ、山添。いつからそんな能力を身につけたのかと聞いている。
いえ、私は劣等生でしたから。
ならいつだ。
多分渋谷の地震の後からだと。
やはりな。
やはりってのは？
こいつらの話と、あとあんたが調べた被害者たちの過去、それらを総合して考えると、
あの地震が原因だってのか？
まだ仮説だがな。
Well, it doesn't need to be the cause, but it could be a trigger. So, if I go back to my theory from before about the idea that maybe the ultimate goal is to like spread these images and to create more psychics so you could real boot farther, that sort of thing, then maybe that's what the earthquake was. In a lot of senses. It was a way to try to real boot a bunch of people into, or to spread the start of the psychic stuff at the very least. Which would imply that it had nothing to do with the experiments underground at the very least. Like they were on the right track, but someone was like way ahead of them. It's like, oh, you're gonna do that? No, I'm gonna do it to the entire damn city, sort of thing. Lapka starts to type something into her tablet.
待ってくれ。地震なんてどこでも頻繁に起こってる。その度にギガロマニアックスが生まれてたらキリがないじゃないか。
いや、私が言っているのは地震そのものじゃない。
あ？
あの時不可思議な現象が渋谷で観測されたのを覚えているか？
Something strange. I did remember actually.
もしかしてあの白い光ですか？
Lapio nodded. That white light. The white light that had covered us right after the Shibuya Earthquake. There were a lot of rumors about it, including one that said it was plasma caused by the earthquake, but I heard they still didn't really know what it was.
驚いたな。久野里さんが陰謀論者だとは思わなかった。
陰謀論？ってまさか一時期流行したあれですか？
I was talking about a certain rumor that had gone around right after the earthquake. Rumor said the quake was caused by a secret tectonic experiment, a joint project between the US and Japan that might have gone awry, that the mysterious light was caused by the explosion. The chaos shadow syndrome, which was believed to be a form of PTSD, might actually be caused by the materials used in that weapon. The rumor was popular in that channel for a while, but people quickly got bored with it. By the time I woken up from my coma, no one was talking about it anymore. No, it'd be more accurate to say that instead of people getting bored, someone had done their best to erase all traces of it. But that's not how conspiracy theories work. You can't erase all traces of the crazy people insisting on everything being a lie and everyone working against them. At the time, I found this strange and started looking into it outside the internet. Despite the large magnitude of the quake, there had been no aftershocks afterwards. All the damage had been concentrated in Shibuya, and the epicenter had been observed to be far too shallow. Despite all this, not a single scientist was speaking up. Whenever someone raised even the smallest doubt, they were quickly shouted down as an idiot conspiracy theorist. So what you're saying is not that they covered it up, but more that they tried to throw everything that was brought up relative to it as conspiracy theories. Yeah, I can imagine that.
というと？
すべての元凶はあの光自体にあるのではないかと私は
本気で言ってるのか？じゃあ君は光の正体を何だと思ってるんだ？
それが分かれば苦労しない。ただ何者かの手によって引き起こされたものだと私は確信している。
すいません。そういうのは後でやってください。私は早く事件を解決してくれればそれでいいんで。
Arimura saw that Shinjo and Labka were about to start arguing and readjusted her tote bag on her shoulder.
私の仕事はもう終わりですよね。じゃあさようなら。宮代先輩たちもまた学校で。
ああ、それじゃあな。
ウキもまたね。てかもっと元気出せよ。
She patted Yuki lightly on the head and left the examination room. Yuki softly whispered, "Yes, ma'am," as she watched her go. After that, Labka began to mumble herself as she started to look at her data on Dad's PC. Why do I feel like she's gonna, try to kill us soon? There's a different look in her eyes than I'd ever seen before. To be honest, she looked a little crazy. I do feel as though she's definitely the sort to go get unstable, chasing something she's so darn sure of, and maybe she's on the right track, but she's probably not entirely, even though she thinks she is. It wasn't like a mad scientist. It was as if she was concealing some dark obsession. I'd seen those eyes somewhere before. Where was it? I remembered and shivered.
あのパイロキネシスト。南沢千里かもしれないあの女の目にそっくりだ。
They are the eyes of someone bent on revenge and consumed by hatred and rage. Da 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 da. Okay, well, I'm gonna call that. Headache is getting a bit worse, so yeah, I said it before, but my plan going forward is that I'm just going to record freeform whenever I feel like throughout a month, and this is just going to be my policy on whatever visual novel I'm playing in the future, unless I say otherwise, which, chances are there's a decent chance of that. I'm just going to take everything from that, make one big ol' episode, and then finish. So, that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Oh, and then post an episode. I don't know. The headache's being a headache. And blah, blah, blah. So that's where I'm going to leave it for today. So, I'll see you all next time. Drive safely, everyone.